last week, running from the heat, but the beat's coming alive. Let's get lost tonight. Lord, who's on my
right? Hello, wackos. Welcome to Without a Country. I am your host, Corinne Fisher. How are you doing? I'm great. Thank you so much for asking. I'm so happy to be here with you today. We have a show chock full of things. And of course, I made Mike make the headphones too low. Just the soundboard sounds so loud. And then I like to hear myself a little bit. Otherwise, it just sounds like you're wearing earmuffs and to, get out noises. And that is not the case. Anyway, we have so much to talk about today and so many new things to go over. So I am going to get right into the show. First off, if you are in New Jersey or the New Jersey area on, what am I looking at? This one or this one? This one. If you're in the New Jersey area Saturday, which is December 13th, make sure to get tickets to see me and Chloe at the Dojo of Comedy. That's, at Tiff's restaurant in Morris Plains, New Jersey. Usually, 15 years into comedy, you don't perform at chicken finger restaurants anymore. This is a chicken finger restaurant that all the cool comics perform at. Okay, the whole gang performs there. I think Lev Fur's there in January, who I also highly recommend getting tickets to see if you're in the New Jersey area. But me and Chloe, we're just, it's just like a one-off. We just thought it would be a fun little thing to do before the holidays. We don't really do Jersey shows that much. And Max, what's his last name? Max Marcus, I believe, is going to be there. He's Kyle Dunnigan's opener. Danny Braff, I think, is hosting, who is so funny. AJ Giro is going to do a couple minutes. He's sometimes produces this show. So it's going to be a super fun night, supporting a small local comedy club. The food's casual and delicious and fun thing to do before the holidays get super hectic. So make sure to grab tickets to see that show. That's the only show I'm doing, big show besides like the little showcase shows I'm going to do for the rest of the year in New York City. And then, of course, New Year's Eve at New York Comedy Club, East Village, Corinne Fisher's Morbid New Year's Eve always happens when I'm in New York for New Year's. And so it will be happening again this year. As again, I said, I think I'm going to do a crowd work show for this one. I don't know. It just feels like the vibe. It feels chaotic. It feels fun. It feels New York, New Year's Eve-ish. It's not something I've ever done before. And it's something that I've wanted to do. I wanted to possibly do a crowd work tour. So why not start on New Year's Eve? We don't need to, save our New Year's resolutions for 2026. We can start them right in 2025. I'm so excited to do that. The link to the Dojo of Comedy show, again, is in the Linktree link in my bio on all social media, or you can just, write Corinne Fisher Dojo of Comedy in Google, and it'll also come up. All right. And then I said it was going to be out by late last week, and sorry, I just wanted to make sure everything was perfect for you, but I am launching the merch shopping right now on the show live. You're listening live. The link is in my Linktree bio as well. It's superunison.co/collections/Corinne-Fisher if you want to type it in manually. But I have the link everywhere. Michael put it in the show notes as well. And Mike, I'm going to go through the merch if you want to bring up this link right now so we could go through it visually. It's a collection. You guys had a lot of great recommendations. I couldn't have too many pieces, and I'll tell you why. There's a startup fee and a minimum for every piece. Otherwise, I'm basically getting, F'd in the A. Or actually, I think if you don't even hit the 12-piece minimum, they're not even allowed to print them. That means 12 people have to buy 12, each item for it to go through. So that's very important for you guys to know, which is why I can't have just millions and millions of things. And again, we talked about it last week, but I am working with a small company. I literally talked to the guy who owns it like on the phone. It's a small business. He said they're mostly people who used to be in punk rock bands and then got into printing, which I think is like pretty dope and like aligns with what we feel on the show. And we had a conversation this afternoon just to, smooth everything out about making sure that I'm not losing money on this, but we're keeping the prices as low as we honestly possibly can while still paying the company, because I have to pay them 15% of the retail fee. I'm purchasing each thing for the wholesale cost, and then there's a printing cost, and then you have to pay the small business who's doing all this shipping and everything. And then obviously you're selling merch to advertise the show, but you're hoping to make a small profit to help keep the show alive. And as I talked about last week, I'm not making more than a couple bucks on these items. I actually had to adjust some of the prices because I was losing money on some of the items. So again, like just, trying to keep it as fair as possible. I did go and look at all the pop star websites and stuff, and I was like, they need to be considerably lower than that. I'm selling things for $40 that Taylor Swift is selling for $55. So again, I think that's pretty fair. And she's making a lot more profit on them because she's selling thousands and thousands and thousands of each unit. And the more you sell, the more the price goes down for each unit. If you just know a little bit about printing. Anyway, so I won. Again, if the thing that you wanted to see isn't there, I do apologize. But there's also things that I've been wanting to make for eons, like socks that are just, I would have to sell the socks for $25 for one pair. There are some, like the kind of weirder items are just so expensive, wholesale even, which is why you see people doing the same type of item. But I did like a little bit of different color scheme. Again, I worked with a graphic designer. None of this is AI. I worked with a graphic designer, Joe Frontel. He's based out of Florida. You can go find him. He's awesome. He does awesome work. He did my Eye of the Tiger tour poster. He's just so great. Like, honestly, if you need graphic design done, hire him. He's a mensch. I love him. He is fast and so talented, and I can't say enough great things about him. Mike, did you raise your hand at one point?
Yeah, listen, as somebody who is merch is a large part of my life, this is some pretty impressive merch.
Oh, thank you. That's so nice. Okay, so I'm gonna go through. I'm really excited, and you guys know, this is my baby. Without a Country is my baby. No one else. I mean, Mike, but like no one else is like involved in the creation of the merch. So it's like I made things that I am number one going to wear, and number two I'm genuinely excited to wear. I don't want to think it to be hacky, and I want it to look like, yes, it is merch for a show, but I also want it to look like something that I would buy even if I wasn't familiar with the show. So we are going through it. We have two styles of dad hats, two sayings. First of all, of dad hats, and very excited about those. And this is a black dad cap, which is the cool hat. And the first one says on the front, "Not immune from joining a cult," which we've been saying a lot. I even started saying it on GWF because we need to remind ourselves that no one is immune from joining a cult. And I think that's a very important thing to advertise to other people, because I think there's a lot of cocky mofos out there thinking that they're immune from joining a cult, and none of us are immune from joining a cult. And we need to remember that. Like, it could happen to anybody. And so the hats are $33 each. I hope that's okay for you. Again, this is like, I'm making like $2 on these. So I think that these are really well made, and we've done caps before, and I'm obsessed with my other Without a Country hat, absolutely obsessed with it. I did have to pay a little bit more because I wanted the stitching with the symbol with the WAC on the back instead of on the side. They were like, we can save a couple dollars if we put it on the side. And they showed me, and it just looked not good. So hopefully you guys are comfortable paying a few more dollars to have it on the back where it should be. And I know some people were looking for the original run of WAC hats just to make it a little bit different. This run is purple themed. We did red on the previous hats. So it says WAC. It is the the logo that you know and love, but it's in purple on the back stitch. I think it's going to be super cute, really excited for that. The second dad cap is the one I've been wanting to make for so long. Where is Shelly Miscavige? I want all my girlies and all my boys in this hat. We got to find Shelly. We don't know where she is. No one knows. They've closed the case because apparently some FBI guy, talked to her on the DL. You know, it was just some guy going, this is Shelly. And we can't have that. There are so many things that we need to be talking about. I know every day we can't have a Scientology news story about where is Shelly Miscavige, but we cannot forget, Shelly girl, we got you. Let me know if you DM me, I'll send you a hat for free. I hope you're okay, girl. Then we have a long sleeve shirt. And we have these available in black, purple, and gray, which again is just like the color scheme. I don't know. I just felt this was so cute. Yes, Michael.
Colors?
Yeah.
I mean, that's ambitious for a merch line.
Thank you. I mean, I'm trying again. And there was a lot of talks about because, this one, it can be any color and you can buy, you can sell 12. Because once they've created the logo to drop on the long sleeve, any color will work. But this, I just kind of looked at a lot of the Truth Is Out There alien type stuff, which is kind of what this was based off of a little bit. This is reminiscent of that kind of iconic The Truth Is Out There UFO poster, shout out X-Files. And so that's what that is based off of. On the front, it just has, something small and classy. It says Corinne Fisher's WAC. I am pretending like I'm Andy Warhol now because he would always have Andy Warhol Presents. I didn't put Presents, but I put Corinne Fisher's WAC. Honestly, I feel like a lot of times my name's just not on shit and my name's got to be on stuff. So hopefully you're okay with having my name. It's small. And on the back, it says The Truth. And there's this beautiful dark purple collage of, charts and graphs and headlines to make you scared and fear and capitalism. And then it says The Truth is in there with the big WAC in white. Loving that. I think that's very classy, very cool. Excited about that. Again, available in 3 colors. And there was a ton of different type of t-shirts we talked about. The long sleeve, I just feel number one is the look of the show. And just if you want it oversized, just order it a little bit bigger. I order all my shit in XL now, my concert tees and stuff. Although 9 Inch Nails for the concert this year, they must have already had it pretty oversized because I got it. It's super boxy. I got an XL t-shirt and it's just huge on me. And I got a large hoodie and it is swimming on me. So I just wear it as a dress with tights and boots. I love it, but it's just so big. So anyway, just size up if you want an oversized fit. I always do that. I always get XL because I like my stuff really baggy. Then next one might actually, and this was kind of just me and Joe spitballing. This was not even part of the original idea, but this might be my favorite piece from the collection. This is clutch.
This is what got me to shoot my hand up.
Oh yeah,
this is the one where I went, I need this in my life.
This you can gift because you don't even have the WAC is so small on this one. You don't even know what you're supporting, but this is the classic earth colored, cream colored, liberal, a tote bag. And it says classic liberal tote bag. And, if you know, you know, but this is in this style of the iconic Bloomingdale's bag. And if you, it says, if you're not familiar with what I'm saying, it's if you do small brown bag, Bloomingdale's, I think. It's the iconic shopping bag that they have made, and they've made it into their own totes and stuff. It just looks so good. And it's also this is a New York based show. Bloomingdale's is so New York. In fact, I went to a doctor's appointment down the street from Bloomingdale's today. So I saw the Christmas windows at Bloomingdale's today. But just this one I think is such a nice, clean design. So funny. I just love that one. I really love that. And then we have a black tote bag with purple on it that says carrying the weight of being a Democrat, which I think is also funny. And yeah, not that, being a Republican doesn't have its own weight, but I just feel like there's something inherently liberal about tote bags. Like, to me, they just like say that you have adopted cats. Like, I don't know what, and I have so many tote bags, so I am in there with you. But
so
that.
You say you don't have enough cats for the amount of tote bags you own.
I have 0 cats, but yeah. So that is what we're doing right now. And obviously, like, if these sell well, we can always introduce something, for the spring or whatever. But I had to be smart enough that I wasn't going to lose money on this because I'm paying the graphic designer. I'm paying everything for this layout. So this, I think, has a nice, selection of choices, whether you want like a pithy saying or you just want kind of the classic thing. I hope one of these resonates with you. I hope multiple of them resonate with you. And I hope that the prices are in your budget. And again, I just try to keep them as low as possible, but I do need to make like, at least $1 on each item. And the sales will be open for 2 weeks. And just know this is a pre-order and all the items are expected to ship the week of January 12th, which again, we talked about. The stuff would have had to be in the truck like today, basically, if you wanted it for Christmas. But if you're ordering it as a gift, all the pictures are here. You can print it out, put it in someone's stocking and, have it as the coolest stocking stuff forever because this is way bigger than something that would even fit in a stocking. And, or buy it for yourself as a little treat for being a good, active citizen all year. And yeah, that's that. Again, you have 2 weeks to order, so you got to place your order by Christmas Eve. And then we'll get those orders out to you in the beginning of January. And, it supports the show. And it also like helps promote the show when you wear this stuff extra on yourself on Instagram, when you walk around your town in it. Like, it really, it's a conversation starter, definitely, which is what we wanted to do with these things. So thanks for supporting, me and the show and a small punk rock owned business, basically. And I'm so excited with how these designs turned out. And thanks for your patience on those. So that is the fun shopping time. Let's move right into our wacko mailbag now. It is, sorry, that's the wrong show. It's withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com if you want to email me and, just make sure to give me the link and cite your source. And again, I do read everything, although not everything makes it to the show. So thanks for sharing with me if you have. This is from Wacko Alyssa, who I feel like we also read something from you last week, Alyssa. So thanks for being so on top of it. This was a story that I was going to share in the municipal section, but then Alyssa wrote in with a little bit more of her thoughts on it, and so I wanted to include that. She says, I'm sure you've heard by now about our new mayor here in Miami. The new platforms have taken a hold of it as a win for Democrats, but I thought it was interesting that her campaign ran heavily on nonpartisanship, especially when we see all of these municipal candidates who lean heavily on Trump's endorsement or alignment with him. She has a clear, concise plan on changing the city, a step in the right direction in a city full of corruption, which is very interesting. Number one, that Florida, because for Florida, we think of as, pretty conservative at this point, although lots of people from New Jersey moved down there. But, New Jersey is more conservative, almost than ever right now. So that's not great. Although, everything went great with the last election for governor. And then additionally in Miami, there's a lot of Latino people in Miami, which again, we've seen a really rightward movement, a very MAGA movement for Latino Americans. So I think this is good news. But again, it's interesting to hear from someone from Miami because it certainly is being sold to us on social media as a win for the Democrats. But obviously, it's more of a win for people who are just tired of the BS of both parties, it seems. Which is, again, not unlike some of the campaigns that we saw win. Certainly the Zoran Mamdani campaign here in New York was not like, oh, yay for Democrats, because he's a democratic socialist. So it was like, we need to get our act together. And I'm not exactly the same as them because I'm a democratic socialist, even though I'm running on the Democratic line. People aren't really like, taking, this is a magnifying glass. I was like, binocular. This is a magnifying glass. They're like not taking a magnifying glass up to the line and be like, what line are they running on? Some people look at the line that the person is running on, but those are people who are like really into politics. And that's not the people we are concerned with right now. because those people always show up and know what they need to know. So this is from Politico. Miami elects first woman mayor. It's also the first woman mayor. And again, it's, alarming how many female firsts we're having in 2025, but, better late than never, right? So Miami elects first woman mayor, marking first win by Democrat in 28 years. So in many of your lifetimes who are watching this show, the defeat of the Republican in the race, who was endorsed by President Donald Trump, gives added momentum to Democrats heading into the 2026 midterms. Democrats can now add a major city in Donald Trump's home state, and one set to host his future presidential library to its list of off-cycle election wins. In a Tuesday runoff, Miamians elected Eileen Higgins as mayor, the first woman in the city's history to hold the job, and the first Democrat in 28 years. Higgins, a former county commissioner, defeated Republican Emilio Gonzalez, an ex-city manager who had the endorsement of Trump and Governor Ron DeSantis, with 60% of the vote. And then you're also going up, again, someone Latino, winning against a white woman, which is not, like being white, depending on what city you're in politics, can really work against you. Honestly, New York City being one of those cities. Miami chose a new direction, Higgins said during her victory speech at the Miami Women's Club. You chose competence over chaos, results over excuses, and a city government that finally works for you. Though the race and the job of mayor are nominally nonpartisan, the election generated sizable interest from national Democrats and Republicans. Higgins' win adds to the slew of victories and close calls Democrats have seen this year, including last week's strong performance in a House special election in Tennessee. They're referring to the Afton-Bain race that we talked about a lot on here. The election could boost messaging for Florida Democrats who face setbacks in recent election cycles and have a 1.4 million registered voter disadvantage in this former swing state. Tonight's victory shows that the pendulum is swinging in our favor and that when we commit to relentless year-round organizing and invest in a long-term strategic field plan, we can, in fact, win, FDP Chair Nikki Fried said in a statement Tuesday night. Despite the race's partisan themes, Higgins, a mechanical engineer and former Peace Corps director in Belize, often shunned partisanship in interviews and instead ran a campaign focused on how she would make city government work better and alleviate residents' affordability issues. And I think people are really responding to that right now because everyone is having a hard time financially. Or most people, not the billionaires, but most people are having a tough time financially. And they're like, at this point, they're like, I don't even care. I'll just vote for anyone who makes my life easier, which is, I think, why a lot of people also went MAGA. But obviously, as we've seen, affordability has not improved. People are actually doing worse than they were for the most part, and that's because we're buying, full multiple Boeing 747s to have our own deportation airline here in America. That's what your tax dollars are going towards. We'll get into that in a little bit. And so at this point, people are like, we're so divided as a country. The one thing that we can all agree on is that things need to be cheaper and life does not need to be that way. And I think people are finally waking up to that. And so that's a wonderful thing to run on. And I hope that resonates with both Democrats and Republicans. Like, I am a Democrat, but I don't want Republicans' lives to be bad. I want everyone to be having a good life. And even when you have viewpoints that would make my life worse, like you don't think that I should be able to have an abortion, even to those people, I don't want you to be having a tough time at home. I don't want you to not be able to have, pay your bills. I don't want you to not be able to take care of your children. I just wish you would mind your own business about my body. And if you don't want, if you're a Republican and you don't want to have an abortion, I support your right to not have an abortion. Okay, that's great. I love that you have that choice, She promised Tuesday night to get to work the very next day and to serve every single day to be the honest, effective, hardworking mayor you deserve. Because, what I see a lot of now is, Democrats kind of lowering themselves to the level of, not Republicans, I don't want to say, to MAGA. And, just being, really childish and wishing people ill. Again, we saw, a lot of that during the Charlie Kirk assassination. That gets views and that gets clicks and that gets you, New York Times articles. But I'm not interested in doing that. I don't think that's the way. I mean, I think it's fine to, troll certain characters. Like I did put a reel up today, definitely trolling Nick Fuentes. But my thought there is, he's getting platformed by all these places, and that's not going to stop happening, as long as those interviews are getting views. And so while I'm not really interested in platforming Nick Fuentes on here, although, I got to be honest, like if he wanted to do an interview, I wouldn't turn my nose up at it. I mean, I think he has much bigger platforms to be interviewed on. But I do take my job in schooling people on what's going on on the far right seriously. And, even today when I posted that video, people were like, who is Nick Fuentes? And I got to be honest, the same as if you didn't know who Charlie Kirk was when he got assassinated, if you don't know who Nick Fuentes is, at least, like if you're not familiar with a little bit of his rhetoric, that's not a great sign. We got to play defense as well as offense. And so, I want to help you guys play defense. And for my, mainly liberal following, although everyone's to know who these characters are so that we're not surprised, because just because you're not listening to Nick Fuentes and just because Nick Fuentes means nothing to you, a lot of especially young men are listening to Nick Fuentes, and you might be dating those men, or your children might be dating those men, and you need to know the ideas that he is pumping into people's brains. It's very important to know what's going on, And I think that if a lot of these far right gentlemen did the same thing, and instead of just mocking podcasts like GWF, actually took a moment to listen to what we are saying and say, because we are straight women, we continue to date men. And, if you're so lonely and there's this loneliness epidemic, maybe if you just listen to what we're saying, what our complaints are, the reason why we are so angry at men, maybe things could get better. But you could just keep, leaving TDS on, everything that we post, and that could also work out for you, Trump derangement syndrome. All right, so back to the article. She and Gonzalez also agreed the city's politics had been far too dynastic, dramatic, and corrupt, and both called for entering a new era of stability. Miami's international standing is set to grow in the years ahead, given the city will host FIFA World Cup matches and neighbors Doral the summit. Its population since the COVID pandemic also has surged, with wealthy residents who've contributed to making life less affordable for longtime Miamians. So it's so interesting. So, look at that sentence right there. So basically, all the talk around COVID and Florida's kind of refusal to even believe that COVID was a thing made a lot of people move down there, but it made a lot of wealthy people move down there who are now, what are they doing? As usual, effing over, everyday people. Okay. So just remember, when you think, if a lot of wealthy people are voting Republican, why would wealthy people be voting Republican if Republicans want to help everyday people? Make it make sense. Oh, it doesn't. Okay. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. You said, oh, we're not doing COVID down there. And then all the rich people came down and effed you over. Remember that. He took in Tuesday night's results at Meraki Greek Bistro, where he was taped by WPLG, breaking plates in the Greek tradition, a tradition that's viewed as cathartic. Higgins shared that he called her to concede the race and that they had a shared desire to see Miami succeed. The Miami Herald reported he told Higgins he would get behind her. Higgins went into the runoff having spent more on TV ads than her opponent, and she won 36% of the vote during the November 4th election against 12 other candidates. Again, and we're also going to see, I think, we talked about this last week, but packed races. She was a well-known county commissioner for 8 years in a district that included the downtown area. On November 4th, Higgins also came in first in all 5 of the city's commission districts. She replaces outgoing mayor Francis Suarez, who briefly ran for the Republican nomination for president. Though Trump won Miami-Dade County by 11 points in November, he narrowly lost Miami, a city of 500,000 people that has a slightly higher number of registered Democrats than Republicans. The circumstances of the race were also unusual, given that Miami hasn't seen a runoff since 2001. Ahead of the runoff, top Republicans were already working to temper expectations. Republican Party of Florida Chair Evan Power called it fool's gold for Democrats to claim momentum or victory in Florida, dismissing Miami as a place that leans D. On Tuesday night, he pointed to GOP victories in a special election race for the state Senate and noted Miami still had a majority on the city commission. Miami-Dade County Chair Kevin Cooper said Democrats were making a mountain out of a molehill. They are not happy that the Democrats are doing well right now, so they're going to downplay it. Oh, Miami, of course, is going to vote Democrat. Shut up. They're going to try to read something into this that it's not, he said, it's not a rebuke of the president or the party. Democratic city elects Democratic mayor. Still, Higgins' victory marks a blow to the GOP as Miami voters have sent Republicans to City Hall for nearly 3 decades. Miami-Dade County is also led by Mayor Daniela Levine Cava, a registered Democrat also in a nonpartisan job, who easily advanced to re-election in 2024 without needing to go to a runoff. Other county-wide races saw defeat across the board for Democrats in 2024. After Trump got involved in endorsements. At this point, I do think a Trump endorsement is the kiss of death. The expectation that Higgins might win caught the attention of top Democrats across the state and nationwide who traveled to the Magic City over the weekend to help get out the vote. The Democratic National Committee sent in volunteers, and on Monday, she was joined for a canvassing event by Rahm Emanuel, a former Obama chief of staff, Chicago mayor, and ambassador to Japan, who's president in 2028. Among the visitors to Miami this weekend were Democratic Senator Ruben Gallego, as well as Democratic gubernatorial candidates former Rep. David Jolly and Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings. Higgins also received an endorsement over social media from former Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, also a former mayor and 2020 presidential candidate. Chris Gorge, finance chair for the Democratic National Committee, called Higgins' victory a huge moment in politics for Democrats. Emilio and President Trump doubled down on this race, and he didn't lose. He was annihilated in this election. He said from the victory party, adding, "This is a national race. They made it into a national race, and they got clobbered." The mayoral race may not have happened at all this year if it weren't for Gonzalez. City commissioners voted in June to postpone the election by 1 year to coincide with the midterms, a move they argued would save money and boost turnout. But the change also would have extended the terms of Suarez and several commissioners. A very similar conversation was being had in New York. That was, what we were voting on. Gonzalez sued to keep the election in place and won in court. Gonzalez is a retired Air Force colonel, former director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, and which is really crazy that he's the former director of U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, and he is, taking an endorsement for Trump, who has been wildly anti-immigrants. It just seems like, all right, that's not really the look. And former CEO of Miami International Airport. He had close ties to the White House, having been on the Trump transition team and a founder of Veterans for Trump. He's also a senior fellow at the Trump-aligned America First Policy Institute. Had he won, he planned to continue that role as well as his job at an asset management firm, given that the role of Miami mayor is considered to be part-time, which is so hilarious for a city, that major to be a part-time job, which again just kind of aligns with yes, mayor of New York City is the biggest mayor, but again, this, again, look at what the mayor is actually in charge of. It's not that much. In fact, I got an email this week being can you help with this team that's going to kind of make sure the stuff Zoran Mamdani wants to get done can get done, because he, which is, proof in my email about how little power, the mayor actually has, and how important it is that the mayor, the mayor-elect, get the people of New York City to mobilize, because we are going to have to fight Kathy Hochul and Albany every step of the way. And I certainly will be doing that, and again, I think if there's, I would have loved to have been that person to mobilize individuals, but I think Zoran is a great choice because he has proven that he gets people excited and he is able to mobilize people. And that is really arguably the most important role of the mayor, specifically of New York City, is that you need to be able to mobilize the people, because if the people are quiet on the issues that the mayor ran on, those issues are not going to become policy. They're not going to become policy. That's just what it is. Real quick, let's get into our, I guess we're going to do enemy of the state this week. I'm gonna give. I think it has to be Pete Hegseth has to be our enemy of the state this week, just because of all the nonsense going on with the war crimes and the boat strike and the video. I mean, he was the main topic as far as it goes on SNL this week. The opening sketch was about Pete Hegseth, going on, his kill everybody, Operation Kill Everybody. And it, again, he's the Secretary of War, and he really seemingly doesn't either know or understand or care about what the rules of war are. And
enemy of the state.
And I would say that's pretty alarming. And I'm glad people are kind of staying on that, and we'll see, if he has to pay any penance for what he's done. All right, our Patreon dictator, our dictator, not even our Patreon dictator, our dictator, as it has been for the past several months, is Christopher Fungi. All hail to our amazing dictator. Thank you so much for your leadership, and all hail to my capitalist pigs and my cuties. What's up? How you doing? Thanks so much for supporting the show. If you also want to be supporting the show, and if you want to get your name shouted out on an episode, head over to patreon.com/withoutacountry and you can be featured on next week's episode. And again, thank you so much for everyone who supports the show financially, or who just supports the show by watching it. And following and, subscribing to the YouTube. I really appreciate you guys. Love what we do here. I have such a good time. I look forward to the show every week. It could be worse. This is one of those things that when it crossed my desk this week, and by crossed my desk, I mean scrolled on my Instagram, I go, holy moly, what is going on in the world? This was so upsetting. But, I don't know. But anyway, it's a perfect could be worse. And it is from The Independent. Taliban makes 13-year-old boy execute convicted murderer in stadium spectacle attended by 80,000. So again, public executions, not a good thing. Just not really what we want to be having anywhere in the world. And certainly not a, Taylor Swift sized stadium. It's really, really alarming, and more alarming that a 13-year-old boy was forced to do that, and I'll explain why. So Afghanistan's Taliban made a 13-year-old carry out a public execution in front of thousands of onlookers, shooting a man who had killed more than a dozen members of the boy's family. An estimated 80,000 people gathered at a sports stadium in the southeastern province of Khost to witness the horrific spectacle, condemned by the UN as inhuman and cruel. And for all parties, it's inhuman and cruel for the boy. It's inhuman and cruel for even the murderer. It's, we could argue like, who cares? And I hear you, but again, it's just like, it's more so the precedent you're setting for a society. And it's inhuman and cruel for the 80,000 people who showed up that like, it really speaks like that's not a healthy environment for any of those 80,000 people to be living in. Like even though they went, consensually and they wanted to, I'm sure people were, there were people who were excited to go. I'm sure many people were excited to go. But again, like that there's just no way that can be excusable in society. And, we don't have public executions of this level in America. But certainly, like in certain states where capital punishment is still legal, a lot of times they allow, certain press or family members to watch the execution. So I wouldn't call that public execution, but it's certainly not private. There are people who are fully private, and that there are people who are allowed to, I guess in America we call it, what do we call it, invite-only capital punishment. And I don't know. I just don't think that this is like where society should be at in 2025, and it really bothers me greatly. The convicted murderer called Mangal and 2 others had been found guilty of killing 13 members of the teenager's family, including several children and women. The killer was sentenced to qisas, a retaliation punishment under Sharia law, similar to the biblical principle of an eye for an eye. The Supreme Court said the victim's relatives were given the chance to forgive and reconcile, a move that would have spared the man's life, but authorities said they instead insisted on the death penalty. And so, like, this 13-year-old basically was given the choice to say, I pardon this guy or no, and he didn't pardon him, which, I mean, I get that. I don't, like, like empathy and forgiveness and all those kind of things, I think are like kind of like adulty feelings, and you get to them. Like I was certainly more angry in my 20s than I am at 40. And I have, learned to, to show empathy for a lot more people. And I know you're thinking like, well, if some guy killed 13 members of your family, you'd be angry. Oh, I would certainly be angry. I wouldn't want the guy to have a good life. That's for sure. I wouldn't be like, yeah, let me shoot. Like, I just know that about myself. I really do. And a 13-year-old, you don't know how that's going to affect him later. No matter if he grows up and still wants the person dead or not, the fact that he had to do that, he is now 13 and he's killed a man and he had the choice not to kill a man. That is a heavy weight. I hope he gets the mental health care that he deserves. And I hope that he has, support from any remaining family members or community members. Like, my heart just breaks for him. I think he is the largest victim in this story, really. The Supreme Court, let's see. So the death penalty, we got to that. Today, a murderer was sentenced to retaliation punishment in the sports stadium in Khost province. A statement from the Supreme Court of Afghanistan said on X, the family of the victim was offered the option of forgiveness and retaliation, but after they refused and insisted on qisas, the order for the implementation of the divine ruling of qisas was issued. At the conclusion of the gathering, prayers were made for the strengthening of the national security, for the people's better access to their legitimate rights, and for the proper implementation of Islamic Sharia throughout the country. The Taliban had reportedly banned spectators from bringing camera phones inside the stadium where the execution was held. Okay, well, there's one, piece of silver lining. However, a video captured from outside the stadium purported to show a huge crowd of tens of thousands of men gathering to witness the execution. Executions, and then again, it's like, okay, we're only allowing men to these executions, and we're allowing public executions to be viewed. And so do not think that somehow affects these men. When you see violence, especially when it's okayed by the government, there's no way that does not make you more violent. And then you go home to your wife and your children, and you think of violence as a solution. You think of violence as holy, even as something wanted, Oh, God. The man was shot to death after Afghanistan's 3 levels of courts, lower appeals, and the Supreme Court all confirmed the death sentence, with the country's supreme leader, Hibatullah Akhundzada, giving the final seal of approval. It marked the 11th execution carried out under the Taliban's strict interpretation of Sharia law, under which crimes such as murder, adultery, and theft can involve punishments including execution, amputation, or flogging. The Taliban has also banned Afghan women and girls from secondary school, university education, and most forms of employment since the group seized power in 2021 in the wake of the chaotic withdrawal of U.S. and NATO forces. United Nations Special Reporter for Afghanistan, Richard Bennett, posted on X earlier on Tuesday that reports had suggested the public execution was imminent and called for it to be halted. Public executions are inhumane, a cruel and unusual punishment, and contrary to international law, he posted. During their previous rule of Afghanistan in the late 1990s, the Taliban regularly carried out public executions, floggings, and stonings. The Taliban's first public execution since returning to power was in December 2022, carried out by the victim's father in front of a crowded stadium in Farah province. And again, so like I do feel like blood is on our hands as Americans. We pull out, and this is what happens in Afghanistan. And I just think it's like something we should be aware of, and not that we have a lot of pull, honestly, to change this, but I think the first step is knowing about it and making sure that other people know about it, because this is grade A effed up. And I know thoughts and prayers don't really do anything, but man, my heart goes out to that teenager. And someone needs to do a documentary on when you're 13 and you have to publicly execute your family's murderer, how your life trajectory continues. Like, honestly, documentary idea. Just put me on as a producer. Happy to produce that any way I can for you. But I think that would be a really interesting thing, because there's no way the rest of his life goes off without a hitch. There's just no way. And the culture of only men being allowed to witness, the execution, even though it says, women were part of the victims. So if it's all about retaliation and women were victims, why are women not allowed to watch this, too, if this is supposed to be so healing for us as a community? Moving on to Cuties Corner. We haven't done a Cuties Corner in a sec, maybe a couple weeks ago. But I want to talk about our friends at the White Coat Waste Project. White Coat Waste Project, everybody. Kittengate is happening. I got to remember how to say Bhattacharya's last name. How do we say that? Sorry, I forgot to Google this. Google voice it. How do we say that? Pronunciation. Bhattacharya. It's a common Bengali name, apparently. Bhattacharya. Okay, I'm just getting it phonetically. So, Kittengate, Bhattacharya's NIH funds cruel cat colony despite phase-out pledge. This is posted on the White Coat Waste Project blog by Meg McCarney from the 3rd of December. So a new White Coat Waste investigation exposes that the National Institutes of Health, the NIH, recently doled out new funding to a kitten torture colony at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, despite the agency claiming it is working tirelessly to phase out cat experiments. And sorry, I just have to take a moment and say, bless you if you watch this show, because I realize I just started off the show by talking about merch, fun, light, and then it goes into a 13-year-old being forced to execute his family's murderer publicly, and a colony of kitten torture. And it's so funny because although I read all this bad news every week and stuff, and it doesn't it just doesn't make my soul feel heavy. It really makes me feel motivated. And so I hope that this show, I'm not saying that it never bums you out, and I'm not saying that it never bums me out. I've been thinking about that witch village in Ghana for weeks. Like, I really have. I told my mother about it. Like, I'm telling everybody. That's my Christmas story, my Hanukkah tale. But I do hope that it motivates you and it makes you feel like you know what's going on in the world around you, but that doesn't stop you from finding joy in your own life. And I hope that it doesn't make you think that all people are evil. Because I talked about this on GWF this, on whatever we recorded this week. I'm not sure exactly when it's coming out, but there's some, getting more involved in politics and running for office, like you would think that would make me hate people more. And in fact, it did the exact opposite. It really made me like people much more and empathize with people much more and be more motivated than ever to help everyone get the quality of life that they deserve. Even though humans are at the basis of suffering in almost every one of these stories. I am less concerned with how much I hate the people who are creating the suffering and much more consumed with how do I make the suffering stop for those who don't deserve the suffering. And I will, I'm not saying, I know people might say like no one deserves suffering. So I have some exes who deserve suffering. Anyway, so the kitten torture colony at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, despite the agency claiming it is working tirelessly to phase out cat experiments, documents obtained by WCW through state and federal open records requests reveal that nearly 300 kittens will be intentionally bred to suffer from glaucoma. Kittens are killed before they're 1 day old to have their eyes cut and dissected. Other kittens, just 12 weeks old, endure eye injections and experiments before being slaughtered at around 1 year old. The UWM colony and its deadly kitten tests received a brand new $439,016 grant from the NIH in August 2025. And this is for, excuse me, I know it's not great, but this is for fucking glaucoma. This is not for pediatric cancer. These experiments have been funded by nearly $5 million in taxpayer money from the NIH since 2008. Trump's NIH director, Jay Bhattacharya, and his animal testing czar, Nicole Kleinstruer, falsely claimed that funding for barbaric cat tests predates their tenure. WCW's top priority for the Trump administration is to defund these and all other taxpayer-funded cat and dog labs. So those kind of just like the nitty gritty, and there's documentation that they do post on the blog if you want to see for yourself. But again, White Coat Waste Project, a lot of, some claim it's right leaning. They claim they're nonpartisan. I do appreciate their work they're doing no matter what. And again, their angle, if you don't remember, is that, they're stopping animal cruelty, but they're doing it by saying, hey, look at what all the money that your taxes are wasted on torturing animals. So it is like money first, but I think, for those people who are already going to care about animal testing, they already care about it and they're big animal people. But if you don't care about the kittens, maybe you care that this is where your fucking tax money is going to. And however we can appeal to people to stop this madness, I am happy to appeal to people. And I think it's a kind of an interesting thing that they're doing there. All right. Let's get into girl now. We have a lot of girl stories this week. Sometimes I do main story first. Sometimes I do girl first. Our main stories this week are a little lengthy. I'm going to be talking about, I have two kind of main stories. One is about the Nick Fuentes Pierce Morgan interview, which again, I do think is important to at least go over so we can play our defense like we need to, not just our offense. And then an interesting Somali fraud scandal in Minnesota that I thought, initially when I saw it was just kind of like xenophobic nonsense on Breitbart, but I looked into a little more and it does have legs, and you're not going to see it covered because it's not the story that liberals really want to showcase. And again, as we know, it's not so much that news outlets are are creating lies, not the ones that are held to journalistic standards, at least. It's more that when they don't want to tell a story that doesn't align with what the worldview they want to express, they just don't tell the story, or they tell part of the story. And we see that on both the left and the right. And this is an instance where we're not going to really see this story on the left. The New York Times, in their defense, did put a story on it, but obviously it's not as clickbaity of a title. Or xenophobic of a title, depending on how you look on it. So first, real quick, if you didn't hear, Jasmine Crockett has announced that she's running for Senate in Texas. We are going to keep eyes on that. I think, and I don't know if Mike knows this since he's the AIPAC king over there, but I saw some talk about how Jasmine Crockett is pretty aligned with Israel, and people were having a lot of problem with that. So I'm interested to see the pushback she gets in this run. Is that something you're familiar with?
With Jasmine specifically, no. I'm not. I mean, I'm checking, my de facto homepage at this point, which is trackapac.com.
Right.
I'm not seeing any greens in the state of Texas, but I'm not seeing Jasmine on here
at all. Oh yeah, because I can just type in someone's name, right? How do I've never even used this. I've seen people post, but how do you do it? Okay. Oh, I see it. Jasmine Crockett. So you can go to Track APAC and type anyone's name in, and they tell you the money that they've taken. Oh, okay. Here. Is she on here? Where's Jazzy? I don't see her on here at all.
So I'm seeing I'm just seeing a post on Reddit on the Texas politics section that is citing their sources, and it's saying that her actual record while she's been in the House, only a 20% progressive bill sponsorship, rarely sponsors progressive legislation. Real progressives write push bills; they don't just vote after the fact. Accepts crypto PAC money, over $2 million in backing from crypto industry.
And where is what's the source for this?
This source is
MikeHarrington.com.
Axios Dallas. Crypto traders bet big on Jasmine Crockett's run for Congress.
Okay, fair.
And then her trip to Tel Aviv was paid by AIEF, a branch of AIPAC.
So not looking good. So I'm really interested to see how the Senate run goes, because this is, this AIPAC and Israel alliance has become this all-consuming issue in U.S. politics right now.
Yeah, but is it in Texas? It seems like they're pretty pro. Like Marco Rubio is he's gone on record as saying, or Ted Cruz. I'm sorry,
Ted Cruz is a Republican, so I think it's different.
I don't know.
Well, I mean, yeah, Ted Cruz is at the top of his. I mean, he's received $1,872,592 received from the pro-Israel lobby. I mean,
I think what you're going to start seeing is a lot less of this, Republican versus Democrat, and way more of this AIPAC or non-AIPAC. Like, as it becomes more of an issue, I agree. That's going to become the splinter where it's like AIPAC almost becomes our third party at that point.
Yeah. And it's some of these numbers are so low. Like Brian Babin, he sold himself out for $44,000. Boo! Just go on Instagram and ask your followers for $44,000. You don't need to be doing this. All right. So that I think is going to be interesting. All eyes on that. Because I do like, Jasmine. I think she's a force. People talk about her. But again, like as soon as this AIPAC shit gets out, she better watch out, because I don't think people are going to be happy about that. Big news for this week. I know you thought the biggest news was that the WAC merch was ready for consumption, but I would say the biggest, another piece of big news is that, it's also ready for consumption? Project 2026. Oh my God. You thought they were going to stop? Nope. And maybe we'll all pay more attention this time, even though I told you to pay attention last time because I knew they were doing it. So here, this is from Newsweek, Heritage Foundation 2025-2026 priorities. I mean, you could read it in full, obviously, if you want, but the Heritage Foundation outlined its priorities for 2026 after Project 2025 received considerable backlash over its strategies for limited government, border security, and tough immigration laws, among other conservative measures. A spokesperson for the think tank referred Newsweek via email to a report from the Daily Signal announcing Heritage's new strategy for 2026 titled "The Golden Age is a Choice." God help us. God, we're all going to be drinking water that, I don't know, fertilizes us or makes us not able to have children. I don't know what's going on here. The foundation has shifted. Watch the water. The foundation has shifted to a Heritage 2.0, focusing on 4 cornerstones. So listen up. These are our 4 cornerstones for Heritage 2.0. 1, the American family. 2, the dignity of work and the future of free enterprise. 3, national security and the American heritage and citizenship. Oh, I guess that was 3. 3 is national security. 4 is the American heritage and citizenship. Punctuation wasn't great in that sentence. According to the report, a representative from the foundation also told Newsweek via email Tuesday that there is no Project 2026, only the list of priorities for 2025 through 2026. So maybe they're not even going to publish the whole thing this time because they know we're on to them. And I gotta say, it was very generous of them to give us a heads up on the whole thing last time, and we could have prepared better. Did we? No, of course not. We're Democrats. So the list was originally published in February and recently gained traction on social media under the labeling Project 2026. So, I mean, that right out of the gate shows us we were already so far behind that it's now December. This was originally published in February. We're just getting our grimy mitts on it. Democrats, get online more. Go on Facebook. Find these files. Project 2025 was an effort of more than 100 organizations convened by Heritage to prepare for the next conservative administration. That administration is now in office, so all policy and personnel decisions are up to the president and his team. The spokesperson said, adding, there is no Project 2026 and will not be, regardless of what leftist lunatics make up on Blue Sky. So that right there tells you that there's 100% a Project 2026.
You're not throwing out blue sky quips unless
Right.
you're trying to hide something.
Right? No matter what they say on Blue Sky. Okay.
We're on Threads, dummy.
Yeah, we're all on Threads. I know, I really was so excited. I thought Blue Sky was really going to be a thing, and it's not. Threads is definitely where it's at. The Heritage Foundation has played a pivotal role in shaping Republican policy since the 1980s, providing legislative blueprints that have influenced prior administrations. The priority list signals an ambitious effort to consolidate executive power, overhaul federal agencies, and redefine federal policy in alignment with conservative and Christian nationalist principles. Analysts and advocates on all sides are watching closely as the plan's implementation could dramatically affect civil service staffing, agency independence, and key government programs, policies that will impact millions of Americans. Here's what you need to know. The priorities listed for 2026 build directly off Project 2025, also known as the 2025 Presidential Transition Project, launched by the Heritage Foundation to provide a ready-to-implement policy manual. And I do want to point out, right? So this concept of like a presidential transition project, this is not uniquely Republican. Because as we talked about with New York City municipal politics, the DSA also has a playbook that they are going to pressure Zoran Mamdani to play by. And if he doesn't, you will see them start to rebel against him. So it's not that playbooks are, I don't know. I'm not going to say that they're inherently bad or good because I have problems with the DSAs as well. But like the theory or the strategy of having a playbook certainly isn't Republican. It's just more so that like they have this playbook. We on the left need to be looking at it so that we can prepare to, what is it, guys? Play defense. That's right. So, it's the Heritage Foundation to provide a ready-to-implement policy manual, vetted personnel list, and draft executive actions for the next Republican president. The project's central document, Mandate for Leadership, spans more than 900 pages and includes detailed plans to reorganize, reduce, or dismantle several federal agencies and programs. And furthermore, I think what the Republicans do a little bit better is even when they're not in office, they continue scheming. And what we do as Democrats when the Republicans are in office is complain. So although complaining is fun, I'm a Jew, I love to kvetch. We need to be scheming more than we are complaining. You can certainly complain. It's not like Republicans don't complain, but they're scheming, they're mobilizing, they're strategizing while, the other party's in office. They're not giving up hope. They're not going out to brunch. I mean, they're probably funneling money to something. The overarching goal is to centralize presidential authority, eliminate perceived liberal influence from federal agencies, and implement widespread conservative change across government, culture, energy, the economy, and healthcare, right? So just as they're trying to make everything Christian nationalists, like, we got to get our little woke strategies together. Let's see. And then it goes on to talk about the Heritage Foundation and how much of Project 2025 has been, completed. We've talked about that before. So let's go, more to other things the Heritage Foundation is looking at tackling in 2025, 2026. So this is their priorities. Number one is counter the CCP. The Chinese Communist Party is the most persistent and consequential foreign threat facing the American people today. It is building a military to challenge the U.S., stealing American technology at an unprecedented rate, and hurting U.S. workers with predatory economic policies. America is falling behind in this new Cold War. Well, we're also falling behind because our children are uneducated because we like to mess with education, and they're dumb and they can't get good jobs. So we have to give people from other countries these jobs because American people can't do them. Your mic's on, Mike. Heritage will push for decoupling key supply chains and key sectors of the U.S. economy from Chinese influence. Heritage will also expose U.S. firms lobbying for Chinese clients and work to end the flow of fentanyl from China that is killing 100,000 Americans per year. We will advance policies to confront China's attack on American interests and values, develop a China-resistant economy, and ensure our military is prepared to meet any threats China may pose in the future. Next is eliminate regulation, inflation, and spending. Government spending, regulations, and inflation are attacks on all Americans. This is so funny, again, when we are going to look forward in this episode about all the irresponsible spending the government is doing, especially working families who struggle to make ends meet. Prudent fiscal decisions can enable American families to flourish without politicians and bureaucrats controlling our lives. Reforming environmental and energy regulations will result in more affordable electricity and transportation and attract manufacturing back to America. And it's very interesting that Project 2026 is talking about reforming environmental and energy regulations, again, being lackadaisical about it because they don't give a shit about the environment. The counterpoint being all the talk, that Bernie's been doing about AI, and specifically, again, all technological advancements come with a middle finger to the environment, unfortunately. But there are more and more things being built. I think I might have forgot to put this in there today, but new AI data center being built. There was something that was really interesting. I think maybe there was one being built in Kentucky or something that's going to use more. They're being built everywhere, and I think in New Orleans is where it was being built. Yeah, I think it's going to be their largest data spike, and it's going to use more power than 6 times the power New Orleans uses or something like that, something really horrific, right? And again, I am not anti-AI. I really resonate with what Bernie said last week that I shared with you guys, which is that AI is not inherently bad. AI is here and we have to figure out how to control it. But the problem is that the people who are controlling AI are billionaires, and billionaires are not going to use AI for the betterment of everyday people. They are going to use AI to monetize, and they're going to harvest our thoughts and then, basically sell them back to us, right? So it's like, how do we get control back of something that could be really cool, but is not in the hands of billionaires? The Heritage Enterprise will advance a blueprint to reduce the size and scope of the federal government, spend less of our money, and save us from falling off the fiscal cliff. The next one is end the border and immigration chaos. Upholding the rule of law is paramount for a sovereign nation and orderly society. The American people deserve to live peacefully without incursions of illegal aliens across our borders. A strong immigration system enforces U.S. law, secures our borders, and preserves our national integrity. Yet, the Biden administration intentionally and fundamentally transformed America's border and immigration system with lawlessness and incalculable and unsustainable costs, both human and fiscal. The Heritage Enterprise will take steps at the federal and state level to restore the rule of law and provide messaging to encourage enforcement of the law. Ensure election integrity. LOL after January 6th. The right to vote in free and fair elections is the most basic civil right. Americans can have confidence in election outcomes only if they trust that the process is fair. Babes, the process is fair. One of the few fair things going on in this country, in fact. Heritage will restore faith in elections and protect the right to vote for all Americans by advocating for common sense reforms at the state and federal level, like requiring proof of U.S. citizenship to vote and ending the practice of ranked choice voting. Like, when we're talking about making it fair, ranked choice voting is literally to make things more fair. It's to make more people happy. It's to come to a consensus is literally the point of ranked choice voting. But okay, we will always oppose a federal takeover of our elections by Washington elites. The next one says expand education freedom. Yeah, let's make education freer as we get dumber and dumber. The education system is failing our children. From the scourge of woke ideas like critical race theory and radical gender ideology. How about we teach our kids a fucking multiplication? How about let's start there? And stop having this fight about critical race theory versus fucking the 10 Commandments in the classroom. How about let's start with times tables, okay? Can we agree on that? To the lack of academic excellence and transparency. Parents, not bureaucrats, should be making decisions about their children's education aligned with their values. That's different. That's a different type of education. When we're talking about values, yes, I agree that is something that is taught in the home. Multiplication, let's teach it in school and have it be right. Heritage is focused on loosening Washington's grip on K through 12 and higher education. Heritage will work to safeguard parental authority over their children's education, expand universal education choice, protect American taxpayers from bailouts of an academia wholly adrift, and reclaim institutions of higher education from the radical left. Heritage will spearhead reforms at the state level to expand education choice while working to limit federal intervention in education with the goal of ultimately eliminating the U.S. Department of Education. Restore digital sovereignty. American tech companies have been a source of amazing achievements for America, but in recent years, big tech has too often behaved as an enemy of the people, actively undermining American greatness. Big tech has interfered with our elections, sought to groom and brainwash our children with perverted left-wing ideologies, engaged in anti-competitive behavior. I mean, we are moments away from full websites getting banned here, guys. That stifles innovation, colluded with authoritarian governments, and sided with woke elites to suppress free speech and disproportionately silence conservatives. You know, I hope that all your porn websites start getting banned, because then I think maybe you'll pay attention to this nonsense. And sorry to all the sex workers out there. You know I love you. gals and guys, but more the gals. The heritage enterprise will put power back in the hands of the American people by holding big tech accountable, by enforcing antitrust and other laws, and proposing new measures to end its abuses. We will advance laws and regulations that foster competition and cutting-edge innovation, making America's tech sector the world's strongest, most competitive, and most attractive for investment, while making it clear that the era of big tech impunity is over. Put family first. Every child conceived deserves to be born to a married mother and father who will love, guide, and protect them throughout their lives. But family breakdown and rampant abortion tears at the soul of our country and saps it of strength and moral authority. Yeah, they should rewrite that sentence to say, rampant abortion allows women to lead the lives that they deserve. Radical ideologies that deny social and biological truths about sexual embodiment, marriage, and unborn life poison our courts, our culture, and our laws. The heritage enterprise will advance policies at the state and federal level to restore the nuclear family to the center of American life and reduce both the demand and supply for abortion at all stages of human development with courage and compassion. So, things are going to get wackier. So, I mean, what is this? Trump's final years, he's going to, make abortions completely illegal everywhere, nationwide. First step is him getting more power as a president, which is already happening in the Supreme Court. We talked about that last week. And then next step is he's just, somehow finding some law from 1922 that no president has used, but is still technically on the books, and is going to make that, force us to, have babies that we don't want. Okay, cool. That's going to be great. Can't wait for that. Thank God I'm elderly. Root out the deep state. A deep state of unelected bureaucrats and special interest groups regularly bypasses the will of the people by undermining or overriding decisions made by elected officials.
Signed sincerely, unelected officials who are
Jesus
deeply entrenched in the government.
Right? This erodes the American public's trust in their own government. Heritage will support the new administration in its effort to assert effective control over the federal bureaucracy, rein in and reform the administrative state, end the abuses to American civil liberties, and restore excellence and efficiency in government operations. Heritage will work to reinvigorate the Constitution's separation of powers and insist on democratic control and accountability in the federal government. For example, by opposing any expansion of authority for independent agencies, Heritage will also fight the power of special interest groups that seek protection from competition in the form of government-created cartels and monopolies. Unleash American energy. Energy fuels human flourishing and is the foundation of the modern economy. Policies that limit oil and natural gas production weaken America's domestic energy production and make it more costly, while requiring the use of solar and wind energy makes America dependent on China, raises electricity costs, disproportionately harms poor people and farmers, and undermines America's economic growth. Oh my gosh. A historic electricity scarcity crisis is looming on the horizon, threatening reliable and affordable electricity. To avert this crisis, Heritage will advance policies that streamline infrastructure, permitting repeal the toxic renewable subsidies of the Inflation Reduction Act, and reform electricity market regulations. And that's their grand plan for 2026. I mean, and also let me for instance, with this electricity, is there an electricity shortage? So that technically is
obviously
true.
we've been talking about that.
No,
on
I
this
know.
show for a
No,
while.
I know, but to the point where they're making it seem like, I mean, obviously we talked about the grid and stuff, but I want to see, what do they think It's the aging grids, the monopolies, the private ownerships, the regulations. That's more what it
And the
is.
massive demand AI is putting on this grid that is not prepared for it. The massive growth of data centers over the last 5 to 10 years. That's where our energy crisis is actually coming from.
Well,
I don't
yeah,
care
and
what any other chart says.
no, I mean that's not. There's a Business Insider article from last month that says AI's next bottleneck isn't just chips; it's America's power grid. Goldman Sachs says, and we always got to listen to what Goldman Sachs is saying. So the U.S. is racing ahead in artificial intelligence, but its biggest obstacle is more than chips, rare earths, or talent. It's electricity, according to a new report from Goldman Sachs. The U.S. power grid is already straining under the surge of data centers, fueling AI models, with these massive facilities now accounting for about 6% of total U.S. electricity demand. And the thing is, I think with like AI, this is the kind of information that we need to be getting to people, about what to really look out for with AI, like what the problems are. But as always, liberals like to try and put the onus on like the average American, like it's our responsibility to stop, corruption at the very top. When in reality, we want to elect officials who will help pass legislation that doesn't put the burden on individuals and puts the burden rather on large corporations and doesn't allow billionaires to build these data centers that will just bleed out electricity. Like that's the problem here. That's what we seem to not be getting. On the left, there is so much, so many things that are put on the shoulders of individuals that we kind of end up tuning out. We become overwhelmed because so much is being asked of us. We're not doing well financially. It's not like the left is doing great and the right is, doing poorly. Like no one's doing great financially. And then all these burdens and, we're not supposed to shop at this laundry list of places during the holidays. And it's like at a certain point, it's like, why are we as individuals being tasked? Like, why does the left think that's the plan, And sometimes I'll go along with these things and sometimes I won't, but it's like, at this list, and I think, something that is much more accessible for everyone is something that I shared, which is, even if you take, I think it was like $40 of the money that you are going to spend this holiday season, and you spend that $40 in a small business instead of on Amazon, you will do so much. And I think that's something that we can ask of almost anyone, right? Because to ask everyone to only shop small businesses for the holiday season is not fiscally possible, right? Even with the merch at the top of the show, that is a small business. It's a small business on top of a small business, in fact, because I'm hiring a small business and then I'm another small business that you're buying from, right? And so, like you have to charge a certain price to consume from a small business and to make sure that everyone is being paid fairly, and the prices are going to be higher because you're not making as much of the product, and when you make more of the product, the price goes lower. So I think asking people to spend $40 at a small business, and then yes, the rest you can get off on Amazon because you have to buy on Amazon to a certain point because you don't have any money, and they've made sure that you don't have any money, and they've made sure that the prices are going to be lower than ever on in Walmart or on Amazon or in Target. And then all these places are on the list of places that we can't shop. And then, also on the list of places that we can't eat is McDonald's, but McDonald's is cheap. And that's it's like, that's a place where a lot of, Americans need to eat because it's what they can afford. So again, this is just, the cycle continues and continues, and we can't keep putting the burden on everyday Americans. The burden should be on elected officials who need to pass legislation to make our lives easier. So, again, stop with this infighting. If someone is shopping at Target because they can't afford anything else, I don't think like the right approach is being like, fuck you, like what are they supposed to do? Not celebrate Christmas? Like, again, like, I don't know. It just bothers me. And I don't think that giving every person on the left, this laundry list of things we can't do, places that we can't spend our money, but on the list is all the places that are cheap. Like, then okay, well then someone needs to create a place that is not giving money, to Israel, I guess, to Israel weapons, and has prices that are fair. Like again, there's a great place for a liberal with a good heart to create that space where then we can shop, but the prices are not inflated. Ay, ay, ay.
Yeah, but I mean, look, I understand what you're saying from like a liberal point of view, and
Yeah.
that's what your big takeaway is from that. Look, at the end of the day, this Project 2026 is as hypocritical and inverted and falls in upon itself like a house of cards, same way Project 2025 did.
Uh-huh.
You know, it's like you want to make things more affordable by introducing tariffs and getting rid of.
Oh, yes, of course, of course.
We're going to make things cheaper by spending hundreds of millions deporting people.
No. I'm only speaking to the left because, like, obviously, like that's what I'm spending more time on. But and specifically with AI, that's been like a big talking point on the left. And again, it's like, yes, proceed with caution for sure, but it's here, and we know, like, every step of the way in technology in the life that I've been around for, there has been warning, like, this is bad for this is bad for this is dangerous, the internet, all this kind of stuff. It never stopped any of these things, right? Yeah, social media also fucked us all up. The internet fucked us all up, but it also gave us advancements and connections that we wouldn't have had otherwise. Zoran Mamdani wouldn't have won the election if we didn't have social media, BBs. Okay. And again, if you want to look at Heritage Foundation for yourself and keep abreast of what's going on there, you can go to heritage.org and see everything there. Okay. This is another really interesting story for this week. So many interesting things happening this week. This is from BBC. U.S. could ask foreign tourists for 5 years of social media history before entry. This is crazy. And tourists first, citizens after, right? Tourists from dozens of countries, including the UK, could be asked to provide a 5-year social media history as a condition of entry to the United States under a new proposal unveiled by American officials. The new condition would affect people from dozens of countries who are eligible to visit the U.S. for 90 days without a visa, as long as they have filled out an electronic system for travel authorization, an ESTA form. Since returning to the White House in January, President Donald Trump has moved to toughen U.S. borders more generally, citing national security as a reason. Analysts say the new plan could pose an obstacle to potential visitors or harm their digital rights. Asked whether the proposal could lead to a steep drop-off in tourism to the U.S., Trump said he was not concerned. No, we're doing so well, the president said on Wednesday. We just want people to come over here and safe. And I think I guess I should say be safe and be safe. We want safety. We want security. We want to make sure we're not letting the wrong people come enter our country. The U.S. expects a major influx of foreign tourists next year as it hosts the Men's Football World Cup alongside Canada and Mexico, and for the 2028 Olympics in Los Angeles. The proposal document was filed by the Department of Homeland Security and its component agency, Customs and Border Protection. It was published in the Federal Register, the official journal of the U.S. government. The proposal says the data element will require ESTA applicants to provide their social media from the last 5 years without giving further details of which specific information would be required. And so you're giving your handles, like, who's scrolling through this? Are people we're hiring and paying scrolling through this? Are they having AI scroll through this? Probably that one, The existing ESTA requires a comparatively limited amount of information from travelers, as well as a one-off payment of $40. It is accessible to citizens of about 40 countries, including the UK, Ireland, France, Australia, and Japan, and allows them to visit the U.S. multiple times during a 2-year period. as well as the collection of social media information. The new document proposes the gathering of an applicant's telephone numbers and email addresses used over the last 5 and 10 years, respectively, and more information about their family members. The text cites an executive order from Trump in January titled Protecting the United States from Foreign Terrorists and Other National Security and Public Safety Threats. The new proposal regarding ESTA data collection for tourists invites views from the public for 60 days. What? Wow. Nothing has changed on this front for those coming to the United States, a spokesperson for CBP said in a statement. This is not a final rule. It is simply the first step in starting a discussion to have new policy options to keep the American people safe. Sophia Cope of digital rights organization, the Electronic Frontier Foundation, criticized the plan, telling the New York Times it could exacerbate civil liberties harms. No shit. Meanwhile, immigration law practice Fragamon suggested there could be practical impacts as applicants could face longer waits for ESTA approvals. The Trump administration previously announced it would examine social media accounts when vetting foreign nationals who apply for student visas or H-1B visas for skilled workers. The State Department said it would conduct online presence reviews for applicants and their dependents, and that privacy settings on all social media profiles must be made public so that this screening can take place. An announcement on the website for the U.S. Embassy and Consulate in Mexico states certain visa applicants must list all social media usernames or handles of every platform they have used in the last 5 years. It warns that if any social media information is not listed, it could lead to both current and future visas being denied. A senior State Department official said of the student visa policy, it is an expectation from American citizens that their government will make every effort to make our country safer, and that is exactly what the Trump administration is doing every single day. Officers were instructed to screen for those who advocate for, aid, or support designated foreign terrorists and other threats to national security, or who perpetuate unlawful anti-Semitic harassment or violence. As part of the administration's broader effort to toughen borders, officials recently said an existing travel ban affecting 19 countries in Africa, the Middle East, and the Caribbean could soon be expanded. That move was announced in the wake of a shooting of 2 National Guard members in Washington, D.C., in which an Afghan man is accused. Experts have previously suggested the changes to travel policies introduced under Trump have had an impact on the American tourism industry. Earlier this year, the World Travel and Tourism Council said the U.S. was the only one of 184 economies that it analyzed that was expected to see a decline in international visitor spending in 2025. Other Trump administration policies have also appeared to affect tourism to the country, such as many Canadians boycotting U.S. travel as a form of protest against Trump's tariffs. October marked the 10th straight month of decline in the number of Canadian travelers to the U.S. In the past, Canadians have made up about a quarter of all international visitors to the U.S., spending more than $20 billion a year, according to the U.S. Travel Association. All right, so that's good. So they're wasting our taxpayer money, and then also we have less tourism. And everything costs more. Perfect. All right, now getting into the ICE airlines, basically, that I have teased a couple times going into this episode. All right. This is from the Daily Mail. ICE Barbie Kristi Noem splurges $143 million on 6 Boeing 737s bought especially to deport illegal migrants. Fun. Whew. The Secretary of Homeland Security has approved a $143 million contract for 6 Boeing 737 jets to deport undocumented migrants. Kristi Noem has signed off on the deal with the private corporation De Dallas Aviation, 2 officials familiar with the contract told the Washington Post. The deal breaks precedent as DHS has previously relied on charter flights to deport migrants back to their home countries. Your mic's still on, Mike. The agreement means Immigration and Customs Enforcement will operate its own fleet of aircraft used exclusively for deportations. The officials added that the $143 million will come from the Republican-sponsored Big Beautiful Bill Act, which allocated $170 billion for Donald Trump's aggressive deportation agenda. Tricia McLaughlin, a spokesperson for the Department of Homeland Security, confirmed the Washington Post reporting on X, writing, "Somehow, the Washington Post forgot to include anywhere in their story that this new initiative will save the U.S. taxpayer $279 million. I guess they didn't want the public to know. These planes will allow ICE to operate more effectively, including by using more efficient flight patterns," she added. President Trump and Secretary Noem are committed to quickly and efficiently getting criminal illegal aliens out of the country. The Daily Mail has reached out to DHS for further comment. Daedalus Aviation's website says they provide in-flight staffing, travel and ground logistics, and commercial ticketing. From high-tempo government-directed evacuations to sensitive international repatriations, Daedalus provides comprehensive, responsive flight operations tailored to the unique needs of each mission. The company's website states, corporate records state Daedalus is based in Arlington, Virginia. William Allen Walters III is listed as the company's president, while Tondria Capel is listed as the chief financial officer. Walters and Capel list their employer as Salus Worldwide Solutions on LinkedIn. Salus says on its website that the company specializes in niche international aviation. Salus provides services including cross-border ground logistics, international healthcare service, humanitarian assistance, expeditionary medical support, and immigration processing, according to their website. Wow, they really do it all. Salus has an almost $1 billion contract with DHS to support voluntary self-deportations. The contract is the subject of a lawsuit brought on by the New Mexico-based aviation services company, CSI Aviation. CSI filed a lawsuit against the federal government in April, claiming that DHS hastily signed a $915 million contract with Salus without allowing other companies to submit proposals, according to a redacted complaint. CSI claimed that DHS began market research for a contractor to assist with voluntary deportations and chose Salus without allowing other companies to compete for the contract. The federal government justified the deal, citing urgent needs to deport undocumented migrants and explaining that Salus was part of a predetermined pool of vendors. The attorney representing Salus in the case said he doesn't comment on active litigation when approached by the Daily Mail. The Daily Mail has reached out to Daedalus and Salus for comment. The massive Boeing contract marks a new direction for deportations. ICE and DHS have previously relied on contracts to deport undocumented migrants, but the Trump administration has relied on unprecedented ways to transport them. The Wall Street Journal reported in November that ICE officials previously attempted to purchase over 10,000 jets from Spirit Airlines, but the deal fell through when they learned the airline didn't own its planes and the government would have to buy the engines. In September, a Guardian investigation revealed that 44,000 immigrants were deported over 1,700 flights in 100 days from January to May on Global X. Global X is the main charter company that operates deportation flights for ICE. Now, if you want to boycott something, there's another thing to add. The company launched as a luxury travel business, but now earns most of its revenue from its contract with the federal government. And then we look into this. Let's see. So, will the government buying its own deportation planes save money? I mean, it claims, but how do we know? I don't really know how we're going to prove that, right? I guess like if you own it, then maybe, but I think like once you buy something, you have to work off that money, right? It's like when for instance, like if you go to a medical spa and they get those really expensive, cool sculpting machines or something, those are like tens of thousands of dollars. And so, like, yes, ultimately you'll be saving money after you do 2,000 cool sculpting sessions with clients, but ultimately it's a lot of overhead. I guess we'll have to keep looking into that a little bit because I can't tell who is right here. But again, we talked about how expensive deportation would be. And regardless of it's going to save money if we buy our own planes or not, it's just a ton of taxpayer money being spent on deportation, period, hard stop. All right. Now something for the boys, something a little lighter. This is Bonnie Blue is facing jail time. Did you see this, Mike? This, I think, was only announced today that she was facing jail time. Were you familiar with your girl?
What, for stealing too many hearts?
Oh, wow. So this is from Newsweek. Bonnie Blue could face 15 years in Bali jail after alleged porn offenses. Controversial adult content star Bonnie Blue has been arrested in Bali following reports that she was engaging in a sex game in violation of Indonesia's strict morality and anti-pornography laws. The UK national, whose real name is Tia Billinger, 26, from Stapleford, Nottinghamshire, could face a maximum sentence of 15 years and a fine of around $359,448 if convicted. That's chump change, I'm sure, to her. But the 15 years in a Bali prison sounds pretty rough. According to local media, she was detained.
I'm picturing the fellas from Stapleford in Nottinghamshire going, "Oh, you see Bellinger?
I
Say
know.
we Bellinger got arrested in Bali."
I know. Just like doing stuff like this in other countries, like people, I think really don't think of the consequences. It kind of reminds me of like all the suicide forest stuff with what's his name, Paul. What's that guy's name?
Logan Paul.
Logan Paul.
But there was also, Brittany Griner taking a vape into Russia.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's like,
I
there's
don't.
consequences.
I don't think she was doing. I don't think she was doing that. She wasn't making content though. Like that could have just been like an oversight. But yeah, like definitely don't be taking drugs. Don't be taking stuff to other countries. Like everything. American. We talk. We love to talk how much America sucks and stuff. But we have a lot of nice allowances here. We have a lot of nice freedoms here. According to the local media, she was detained after taking part in what police described as a raunchy game with British and Australian tourists aged between 19 and 40. A spokesperson for the police force told Indonesian news outlet Komparan News when they were raided, they were making collab content about a game where the winner would sleep with Bonnie Blue. No pornographic activities or acts have been found in the collaborative content, he said. Today, Blue's publicist shared an update with Newsweek. Officials are investigating the star for multiple charges and that she is due in court on Friday after making an additional statement today. They still don't have any of their phones or passports and are still being interrogated daily, the publicist added. Newsweek reached out to the Indonesian Foreign Office and Negara Rai Immigration Center via email for comment outside of their normal working hours. The 26-year-old was arrested during a police raid on a rented villa studio in Bali on Thursday. According to the UK news outlet The Independent, Blue has since been released from police custody, but had her passport seized and was transferred to immigration authorities for further questioning while the investigation continues. Today, this also could be it could be worse. Today, UK newspaper The Sun shared footage of her in good spirits arriving at a Badung immigration office in a matching green and white crop top and hot pants. The newspaper, that's what I always wear when I'm about to be in prison for 15 years for porn games. The newspaper reported that when asked if she planned to continue making raunchy content in the holiday island, Blue said, "Subscribe and you'll find out." Always a hustler, Bonnie. Always a hustler. Yeah, and then they go into like her other controversies that she's had over the years. What people are saying, speaking to news.com.au, Indonesian immigration expert Philo Delano, managing partner at a Jakarta law firm, said that although prosecution is possible, it is more likely that Blue will face deportation and a future ban from the country rather than a prison sentence. I mean, hopefully for her. Delano said that because she has been detained, she could be charged, but he added that authorities may opt for removal instead. But in my opinion, if there is an invisible hand that requests that she be deported, she can be transferred to the nearest immigration office from where she will be deported from Indonesia. Previously, in an exclusive interview with Newsweek, Blue defended herself in response to widespread backlash against her petting zoo. I get called a predator all the time and a groomer. I sleep with 18-year-olds, Blue said. I'm not a predator. I'm not a groomer. And so what happens next? Bonnie Blue remains under the supervision of Indonesian immigration authorities. She is expected to undergo further questioning while officials determine the outcome of her detainment. Wild times, baby, wild times. All right. Let's get into our main stories. I feel like that is the vibe right now. Well, actually, before we do that, sorry, I want to do one more thing. Well, first of all, there's so much here. Sorry, I'm just kind of trying to. I had more than this, but I want to keep this at a reasonable amount of content for today. But there's just so much, and I knew this was going to be a problem. So I do want to talk about Netflix's big purchase, right? So this is from Variety, how Netflix's WB mega deal stunned Hollywood and sparked a fight from one of Mike's favorite guys, David Ellison.
It was David, not Larry?
Oh, it was David, but the whole family,
Yeah, I mean, all right, if they want to put him at the head of the media arm of the Ellison empire, sure.
Right. Okay, wait. Sorry, I just got into this article. Why does it say this is 18 minutes? There's no way this is 18 minutes to read. Okay, I don't know, whatever. All right, so who do you believe? The battle for control of Warner Brothers and HBO is coming down to an enormous bet on competing visions of the future of the entertainment industry. On December 5th, Netflix landed a whale of a deal that sent shockwaves through the community. The streamer that has upended traditional Hollywood is planning to join the ranks of studio owners with an $87.2 billion agreement to acquire Warner Brothers and HBO Max. Netflix has managed to outflank David Ellison's Paramount Skydance, which for nearly 4 months had been making increasingly rich offers for all of Warner Brothers Discovery, including linear TV networks like CNN, TNT, HGTV, and Food Network. Ellison, angered by what he felt was an unfair sales process conducted by the Warner Brothers Discovery Board and Chief David Zaslav, played his next chess move on December 8th. Paramount announced a hostile takeover bid of $30 a share for WBD, a proposed pack with an enterprise value of $108.4 billion. We're taking our offer directly to shareholders because they deserve transparency and the ability to make an informed decision, Ellison told investors and analysts on a call, noting that WBD had not responded in any way to his company's latest offer. Our proposal is superior to Netflix's in every dimension. Sarandos, at least publicly, was unruffled. Today's move was entirely expected, he said at a UBS investor conference hours after Paramount made its move. We have a deal done. We're super confident we're going to get it across the finish line. The trenches have been dug and will likely be weeks or months before it becomes clear what will happen to Warner Brothers Discovery. WBD said its board will review Paramount's competing proposal as required by law and will issue a recommendation in 10 business days by December 19th. But for the time being, Warner Brothers Discovery is still officially supporting the Netflix deal. The duel between Netflix and Paramount, and who knows if others will emerge, is shaping up to be the most contentious M&A brawl since the early 1990s, when John Malone and Barry Diller scrapped with Sumner Redstone over the acquisition of Paramount Pictures, with Redstone's Viacom ultimately sealing the deal for the studio. In the war for Warner Brothers against the swirling backdrop of egos, money, and market power, there's another X factor: President Donald Trump, who has exerted control over federal agencies. On December 7th, while making his way down the red carpet for the Kennedy Center honors, Trump declared that I'll be involved in the approval process for the Netflix deal. According to Trump, Sarandos visited the Oval Office last week. During the meeting, the Netflix co-CEO sought to reassure the president that his company would not amass anything close to monopoly power and that other media conglomerates would still be bigger than Netflix.com. Than Netflix combined with WB and HBO Max. Sarandos is a fantastic man, Trump said at the Kennedy Center. I have a lot of respect for him, but it's a lot of market share, he added. It could be a problem. Meanwhile, Trump is friendly with Ellison and his billionaire father, Oracle co-founder Larry Ellison. They're big supporters of mine, Trump has boasted. The president publicly praised David Ellison, saying he'll do a great job as CEO of the merged Skydance Media Paramount. The Ellisons surely have been bending his ear in trying to persuade him to oppose Netflix's WB gambit on anti-competitive grounds. But in a surprise turn, the Ellisons faced Trump's lash, a sign of the fickle environment in D.C. in which the mega merger will be evaluated. The president slammed Paramount over an interview that ran on the December 7th episode of 60 Minutes, featuring Georgia politician Marjorie Taylor Greene, a Trump friend turned foe. My real problem, although she just voted alongside the GOP or something, because basically they were like, well, we're going to bring your your protecting kids, aka anti-trans kid bill to the floor if you vote yes on this with us, which she was transparent about, though. But still, my real problem with the show, however, wasn't the low IQ traitor. It was that the new ownership of 60 Minutes Paramount would allow a show like this to air. They are no better than the old ownership, Trump fumed in a Truth Social post. On Monday, asked if he supported Paramount's deal for WBD, Trump told reporters at a White House briefing, "I don't know enough about it. I know the companies very well. I know what they are doing, but I have to see," saying he has to look at how each proposed deal would impact market share for Netflix and Paramount Sky. Trump added, "I mean, none of them are particularly great friends of mine. You know, I want to do what's right." Inside the auction, Ellison, chairman of CEO of Paramount Skydance, miscalculated in the fall when he triggered the bidding war for Warner Brothers by making an unsolicited offer to buy the company. Ellison's theory was that, fresh off Skydance Media's completion of the Paramount Global acquisition in August, he could move fast to preempt rival bidders by offering to buy Warner Brothers Discovery in its entirety ahead of WBD's planned split into two parts next year. He knew other parties, which ended up being Comcast and Netflix, would be interested in buying just WBD's streaming and studio divisions, and Ellison believed his was the cleaner, more compelling offer. In addition to the Ellison family's backing, Paramount's December 1st offer included $24 billion in funding from the sovereign wealth funds of Saudi Arabia, Qatar, and Abu Dhabi. But Ellison's gambit drew out other bidders. During the auction process, Netflix two CEOs, Sarandos and Greg Peters, played their cards closer to the vest. In public, they were non-committal about their interest in Warner Brothers, even as they were already in touch with WBD about a potential deal. Peters, at a conference in early sorry, I was looking at something else, downplayed the company's desire to grow through a major acquisition. One should have a reasonable amount of skepticism around big media mergers. They don't have an amazing track record over time, he said. Ellison, meanwhile, let it be known that going after Warner Brothers Discovery was all part of a master plan to scale Paramount to a global player. After chatter that Zaslav was leaning toward Netflix, Ellison and his team grew concerned that they were losing the deal, and they were frustrated as they felt they offered the higher premium and had been open about the importance of WBD to the larger strategic plan for Paramount Skydance. Paramount lawyers, in a December 3rd letter to Zaslav that was leaked to the press, alleged the board of Warner Brothers Discovery undertook a myopic bidding process with a predetermined outcome that favored Netflix. WBD's lawyers responded that the board had fully and robustly complied with its fiduciary obligations. In a last-ditch scramble, Paramount extended its $30 a share offer to WBD on December 4th. It was the sixth offer Paramount made to Warner Brothers over a 12-week span. It will be the honor of a lifetime to be your partner and to be the owner of these iconic assets, Ellison had texted Zaslav that day, according to a Paramount SEC filing revealing details of the MMP campaign. Let's see. Seeing how much more. In the end, the Warner Brothers Discovery Board got what it wanted in Netflix, a pedigreed, market-leading buyer with a solid financial foundation and a clear strategic need to make the most of Warner Brothers and HBO. Netflix's bid of $27.75 a share for Warner Brothers Streaming and Studios arms was deemed higher than Paramount's final offer of $30 a share for all of WBD, inclusive of the TV networks. Shortly after 5 a.m. PT last Friday, Sarandos jumped on a conference call with Wall Street analysts to tout the monster deal Netflix, once dismissed by the Hollywood establishment as a wannabe power player, had negotiated. I know some of you are surprised that we're making this acquisition, Sarandos said on the pre-dawn call, sounding exhausted but ebullient. The blockbuster deal, Sarandos enthused, would combine Warner Brothers' incredible library of shows and movies, ranging from classics like Casablanca and Citizen Kane to modern hit franchises like Harry Potter and Friends, with Netflix's culture-defining titles such as Stranger Things, K-pop Demon Hunters, and Squid Game. Under the pact, Netflix also would get the Warner Brothers Games division and the legendary Warner Brothers lot in Burbank. Sarandos had been up late the night before, putting the final touches on the WB deal after several marathon days of phone and video calls, emails, and text message chains. Netflix buttoned up the agreement with WBD and Zaslav around 7 p.m. PT on December 4th. Among the final hurdles to securing the initial agreement was WBD's insistence that Netflix commit to a record-setting $5.8 billion breakup fee should the deal run into resistance, regulatory or otherwise. Netflix said it expects to maintain Warner Brothers' current operations and build on its strengths, including maintaining theatrical releases for WB films. Currently, Warner Brothers has deals to release its movies in cinemas through 2029. In the near term, Netflix will also keep HBO Max as a discrete service. Nothing is changing today, but anyone who has experienced a Hollywood merger in recent decades knows that no matter what it said in the moment, the long-term arc of any business leads toward the streaming and eliminating redundancies. Netflix expects to see $2 billion to $3 billion in cost savings annually by the third year after the WB deal closes. Paramount said it saw upwards of $6 million in cost synergies if it merged with Warner Brothers Discovery.
$6 billion.
I said $6 billion.
No, you said $6 million.
Oh, I did? I thought the B came in my mouth. Sorry about that. And it saw upwards of $6 billion in cost synergies if it merged with Warner Brothers Discovery. And that, of course, signals looming layoffs on top of the thousands of job cuts the industry has seen in recent years. Which is super fun. And then there's talk about some backlash on Netflix, but I think that that's more than enough on that. But it was an important story for this week. An additional thing that I think that if you want to read into yourself is like fucking Barry Weiss and the Free Press is buddy now with fucking Erica Kirk. Erica Kirk penned this weird like posthumous final Charlie Kirk final message to America with dead Charlie Kirk. Very weird shit going on. Keep an eye on that. I mean, when I saw that they were giving Erica Kirk more of a platform, I was like, I don't know if I can even keep this Free Press subscription anymore. Like, I like some of the articles. Again, I think it's really important to continue to play offense. And I mean, they're basically like hardcore MAGA at this point over at the Free Press. Not free at all, I would say. But just definitely very, very icky. And another thing that you should need to know that I won't do a whole article on is that a panel has basically voted that a CDC panel has kind of voted that babies don't need to get what's the word I'm looking for? That they don't need to get vaccinated for hepatitis B anymore. And then, you know, you go to the American Academy of Pediatrics, which is aap.org, and they break down the claim very nicely for you. And I would definitely trust pediatricians on this over the CDC or, you know, anything that's connected to any administration, really. It says immunizing newborns against hepatitis B is critical to reduce chronic hepatitis B later in life. False claims that call this benefit into question jeopardize the health of children. The U.S. has made significant progress in reducing chronic hepatitis B, largely due to the birth dose and completion of the infant series, and eliminating the birth dose would reverse this progress and lead to more cases of perinatally acquired hepatitis B and hepatitis B infections throughout childhood. And there's more information on it about that. But, you know, I did look and, you know, and see, and I'm like, who are we going to trust on this? And I know that we live in a time when we think a lot of people are lying to us and monetizing things. And I know it's not like always easy to trust even doctors, but please, like, and I know that there are often doctors who will shill for a certain side, you know, and, you know, there's, you know, Dr. Oz, there's people who have doctor in front of their name who maybe shouldn't, but just, you know, keep in mind when you search things and, like, you know, get the information on what people who you actually care about your kids are saying before you make a decision as a parent, I think is good. And I feel like the American Academy of Pediatrics, who their motto is dedicated to the health of all children, feels better than the Trump administration's feelings on children. But that's just me. All right. Now, finally, into our main stories, Somali fraud and Nick frickin' Fuentes. I know you guys are sick of hearing about Nick Fuentes, but until all the libs know about Nick Fuentes, I'm going to keep talking about Nick Fuentes, okay? Because Charlie Kirk is dead, Nick Fuentes getting a lot of airtime, okay? This is from the Daily Beast. Woman-hating podcaster admits he's never slept with a woman. So funny. I need to put this into the archive real quick so I can see this. I mean, that is just LOL. And listen, you know, I like to be sex positive, but this is absolutely ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So this is by Julia Ornado. Laid bare, Nick Fuentes addressed his intimate affairs as he sparred with conservative pundit Piers Morgan. And like when you know there's something wrong with you when Piers Morgan is calling you a racist and misogynist. Piers Morgan is the scum of the earth. And if he thinks you're the scum of the earth, holy moly. Nick Fuentes hates women too much to ever get in bed with them. The far-right podcaster, 27, admitted that he's never had sex as he jostled with conservative commentator Piers Morgan in a combative 2-hour interview. Morgan, 60, flat-out asked the notorious woman-hater about his intimate affairs as he needled Fuentes about his long history of misogynistic comments, including bizarrely claiming that a lot of women want to be raped, which is a real thing he said. I did fact-check that. And that women suck like they're talking too much. They're not hot anymore. Okay. So women just aren't hot anymore. Another of my favorite things that he said in this was that women just keep getting old. Like, I'm paraphrasing, but he said women, they just keep getting old. Oh, you mean like any human or animal or living thing that continues to exist? You idiot. Like, what are you even talking about right now? You have a mother. Are you actually attracted to women? Morgan asked. I'm attracted to women, Fuentes confirmed. You're not gay, the British pundit went on. No, but I will say that women are very difficult to be around, so there's that, Fuentes replied. The exchange sent Morgan into a rant about how Fuentes is a misogynist old dinosaur. I know I'm the boomer here, but actually, you're a 27-year-old dinosaur, aren't you, Nick Fuentes? He said. All women are annoying. All women grow old. They all get fat, says the guy. Have you ever had sex? No, absolutely not, Fuentes responded. Wow, says the guy who's never got laid, Morgan continued, prompting the podcaster to hold in a chuckle. Fuentes hasn't exactly been secretive about his sex life. The Holocaust-denying white nationalist has repeatedly identified himself as an incel or involuntary celibate, a term that is worn as a badge of honor by members of an online community who typically hold hostile views of women. In 2024, Fuentes revealed that he was a virgin at age 25. Well, I'm Catholic, so I'm waiting for marriage. Also, I'm kind of like an autistic guy, he said on the Hodgett Twins podcast. I'm kind of an antisocial person. I like to do what I do. I think to do what I do, you kind of have to, because I have to be, not be totally self-righteous or whatever, but I am totally ostracized because of my views. I mean, some views need to be ostracized. He shared this anecdote about how growing up, his father wouldn't let them eat at Applebee's or Red Lobster because it was only where Black people eat. It was Black people fare, and believe me, the N-word was being thrown around. It was, and it's confirmed that it was. And Piers Morgan brings that up, and he's like, do you think perhaps that some of your racism stems from the fact that your father, who is Mexican, by the way, it was racist? And then Nick Fuentes just flies off the handle all of a sudden when I thought this was a very fair question to ask. Almost borderline empathetic. Basically, Piers Morgan was trying to give Nick Fuentes a little bit of an out for why he might be so racist. And he was he's like, this is the last straw. You've gone too far. He flipped out. Despite his open hatred of women, Fuentes remains an advocate for marriage. I tell my followers to get married all of the time. I tell them it's the best for everybody to get married. It's the best for men. So if the everybody's men, then yes, statistically you're right. And I think that's the only way that you can have sex, he told Morgan. We have to do it in spite of the fact that they are annoying. We have to do it his vows? We have to do it in spite of the fact that they talk too much. It's crazy for someone who talks as much as Nick Fuentes to say that women talk too much. I mean, is that not ironic to give during a 2-hour interview? We can't get them to lose weight. And that's not even true. So the left is complaining that everyone's on Ozempic, and Nick Fuentes is complaining that we can't get them to lose weight. Which is it, babies? We can put them on peptides. We can get them to the promised land, he rambled on. The podcaster's fans descended upon the comment section of Morgan's YouTube channel to rally support for Fuentes. Watching a boomer struggle to understand an edgelord is so gold, one user wrote. And let me just look at these comments are not going to be great because they're from Daily Beast, so they're going to be super, super left. Someone writes, that was a really difficult read being a female. So this is the attitude of the generation following the beliefs Charlie Kirk embraced. No sex before marriage, etc. Very sad. Why would he even consider marriage? Women are not pawns, grow up people. And yes, I agree, but we need to be reading these things as women. We really need to be. Someone else writes, just another one of Trump's fake Catholics. He seems to attract them. Fuentes claims to be Catholic, yet is full of hate. He is waiting for marriage. What sane woman would seek him out? I mean, hopefully none, but I'm sure, he's rich and he's famous. And I mean, I've seen worse looking people. So someone's going to marry him. That's definitely going to happen. There is someone somewhere for Nick Fuentes, and I don't think she's that far away. And then As a counterpoint to that, there was a piece in The Spectator kind of claimed by Jonathan Sacerdote, kind of saying that Piers Morgan fell right into Nick Fuentes' trap. Jonathan is he's a broadcaster and writer that covers politics, culture, and religion for The Spectator. Other articles he's written recently include the BBC's anti-Semitism training is an offensive parody. Let's see other things the revelations about what the Gaza hostages suffered are the most painful yet. What Trump's Gaza peace plan means for Israel. The looming threat to Israel. Hamas. So he writes a lot about Hamas and Israel, it seems. So this is his latest piece right here. When Michael Gove introduced me to Piers Morgan last week at the Spectator Christmas reception, Morgan seized my hand and beamed, "I know Jonathan, we're old friends." This was generous. Oh, sorry, I gotta put this through the archive as well. Well, 1 second, hold please to bypass. Okay, here we go. When we're old friends, this was generous of him, not least because it isn't true. We met once before, briefly, but some months earlier, I had written a critique of his YouTube show for The Spectator, which, to judge by his response, he did not enjoy. He called me a disingenuous twerp on X and blocked me there. He then wrote a piece in the magazine entitled "In Defense of Piers Morgan," by Piers Morgan. I mention this not to litigate any grievance, but in the interest of full disclosure. What follows is not a personal attack. I don't know Piers well enough to attack him. I only know his work, which brings me to his now viral interview with Nick Fuentes. Searching for the full interview online, I encountered it under the title, "What a Crock of Shit, Piers Morgan versus Nick Fuentes, Full Interview." You have to admire the precision. Rarely do clickbait titles so perfectly describe the substance to which they are affixed. The exchange was a 2-hour verbal trench war, lit occasionally by flares of moral outrage and rhetorical napalm, but mostly defined by the dank, heavy fog of mutual exasperation. I watched the entire thing at double speed, which is still less painful than the time I was obliged to binge the Harry and Meghan Netflix series for a short-lived foray into royal commentary. That, too, brought me into Pierce's orbit. He interviewed me for Fox News about some passing snub involving Prince Harry. He was markedly more composed then. Both men are fluent in the dialect of the algorithm. Each depends on being noticed, and both evaluate provocation into an ethos. Morgan produces content with a structure closely mirroring professional wrestling. Fuentes has amassed a significant following by mingling adolescent irony with overtly extremist rhetoric. One suspects that neither man is entirely serious, which would be a relief were the consequences not so grave. Why did Morgan interview Fuentes anyway? Some will point to journalistic curiosity, the impulse to challenge noxious ideas in the public square. For me, it recalled the old courtly fashion of posing with a monkey. In 16th century Europe, especially among the aristocracies of Italy, Spain, and France, well-appointed men would commission portraits featuring small exotic primates. These small creatures, rare and expensive, served a clear function. They drew attention. Their strangeness, their mimicry, their implied cost. The joke was that men kept monkeys to draw the eye away from their face. It was an elegant misdirection. Frame yourself beside something grotesque or absurd, and by contrast, you look charming, composed, even noble. Fuentes, for those blissfully unaware, is a young American ideologue whose blend of white nationalism, Holocaust denial, and authoritarian posturing has made him a lodestar for a certain online demographic. Morgan's choice to platform him is defensible in principle. Not talking to Fuentes will not make him disappear, but the interview fell squarely into a predictable trap. Do not answer a fool according to his folly, says the book of Proverbs. Lest you be like him yourself, Morgan began. to his credit, by attempting to hold this line. He was firm but civil, confrontational without theatrics, but Fuentes thrives on provocation, and his method is not to win the argument, but to distort its shape. Over time, Morgan began to slip. His tone sharpened, his voice rose, and in one particularly puerile moment, he appeared to mock Fuentes for being a virgin. He then pressed him with mounting irritation on whether he had even seen a tampon, as though this were a metric of political legitimacy. I mean, I think I would like my elected officials to all have seen a tampon. I do think that's fair. It was around this moment that Fuentes calmly advised Morgan to calm down, and Morgan, recognizing he had been thrown off balance, did. The fool had won the point. Proverbs 26:4, an ancient Hebrew maxim that also found its way into Christian teachings, warns not against rebuke, but against engaging in the fool's own style. If you mimic his manner, this distinction between wisdom and folly collapses. And that's a good thing to remember if you're on the left and you find yourself lowering yourself to Donald Trump's ways. I do think that Gavin Newsom has to be careful to not do that, It's like all fun and games, but it's like, okay, if you actually want to be the president, you can't spend all your time trolling. Or maybe that's exactly what you can do because Trump does it all the time. But I just don't think that that's like the direction for the left, Fuentes is not a talented thinker, but he is a talented manipulator. As PIERS said himself, he deploys a double persona, performatively reasonable in interviews, thoroughly unhinged on his own live streams. He claims to disavow violence, then jokes about gas chambers. He flirts with denying the Holocaust while claiming that he simply hasn't made up his mind because he finds the topic uninteresting. He admits to being a racist, yet insists he is merely a racial realist. He praises Hitler and then, when challenged, presents himself as a misunderstood ironist. There is a world for this posture, but it is not subtlety. What emerged most clearly was not a contest of ideas, but two performances pitched to different crowds who neither expected nor desired persuasion. Morgan's audience, older and more mainstream, likely watched in horror, reassured that Fuentes was every bit as repugnant as advertised. Fuentes' followers, by contrast, will have seen Morgan as a relic, a media-age patriarch wagging his finger at a generation that no longer seeks his approval. Each side heard exactly what it came for. No one was convinced. No one tried to be. This is the central problem with debating extremists on camera. The debate itself becomes part of their strategy. Morgan seemed to believe that he might expose Fuentes with reason and good sense, but Fuentes does not deal in reason, he deals in spectacle. And I think that's very important to remember. He does it like it does, and also it's like, does he even believe these things? I don't even know if he believes these things. I don't know. He probably doesn't even believe these things. He just knows how to monetize a spectacle and get fame from a spectacle. His project is not to persuade, but to erode the very...
You can put that on PIERS way more than you can put that on Fuentes, though.
Okay. Mike, you like to defend Fuentes. You can put this on both of them.
No.
You can put it on Ann Coulter, too, while we're at it. We can put it on Bill Maher.
Sure. I'm just saying, if you watch the interview he had with Tucker versus this, it's like one is an actual discussion of like, okay, do you actually believe these things, or are you just saying this to rage bait and getting someone to be like, well, no, as a Christian, I inherently believe that everyone was created in the image of God, so I don't think any one group of people is better than the other. And he gets honest about that. But PIERS is never looking for that from his guest. He's looking for his guest to come across as cartoonishly racist so that he can go, oh my word, you would say that about... And
but it's
like,
crazy because it's not like he's anti-racist or anti-misogyny or anti any of these things. He's a piece of shit too.
I don't know. I mean, I think
it's like
he's
old school piece of shit versus new school piece of shit.
Sure, yeah, he's a piece of shit in the sense that of like to exclusively like mainstream left wing uber liberal people. Yes, he's a bad guy, but
not even uber liberal.
He's as controlled opposition as it comes when it's like we're talking about that world. He's the right wing voice they have to bring into these primetime news shows in England. England because nobody else wants to take the right-wing point of view, and he is like their Ann Coulter.
But I mean, Nick Fuentes is just like at this point, he's just said the craziest thing. Like, there's no way we can agree with anything he says, because how can you even trust him? He's a caricature and he's a fucking dork, which is the most offensive part of it all.
Yeah, I mean, you're a 27-year-old virgin. You are a loser.
Right.
Like, no one should listen to you, period.
But I think now he's, like, as I said, like, he seems to wear that as a badge of honor. And so, in this male loneliness epidemic, losers, need to see a loser doing well. And Nick Fuentes is a loser doing well, if by doing well you mean you're rich and famous.
Could you imagine if the scandal that broke is that he's gotten pussy before?
Oh my God, that would be so funny.
It's like some
a real fuck you to the incels.
Yeah. Some 28-year-old girl is like, I mean, look, I gave him a hand job once in 7th grade, and there's gonna be incels who are like, you liar.
That's so funny. Actually, that would be a great sketch. I should do that.
So fun.
I should do that. I'll credit you.
Dude, yeah, no, that's actually great.
It is. It's such a good idea to be able to do a video where I actually gave Nick Fuentes. Well, he said he never had sex, though. He never said he didn't have a hand job.
Yeah, all right, whatever. You were his middle school teacher, and you took his virginity.
Oh my God,
I love it.
Oh my God, I was 13. Like, okay, let's see. His project is not to persuade, but to erode the very possibility of persuasion. He does not want to be taken seriously. He wants to make seriousness itself look foolish. And here lies the deeper irony. In striving to unmask the odious little toad before him, Morgan fell into the bog. One cannot climb into the pit and complain about the smell, nor, it must be said, it is clear that such creatures are best met on live-streamed platforms designed to maximize controversy. If Fuentes deserves to be interrogated, and he does, it should be by someone who neither flatters his intellect nor fuels his theater. This was not that. This was something else. Something that begins with the ring of celebrity and ends with the thud of wasted breath. One left with no clearer picture of how to reach Fuentes' millions of followers, nor how to draw the boundaries that might contain his ideas. I mean, my idea was just for like liberal women to start really liking Fuentes. I think that's the fastest way for Nick Fuentes to lose his position, is if a bunch of people were like, gay pride, and we love Nick Fuentes. Come out of the closet, king. But then that never may have been the point. Everyone got what they came for in the end. I'm afraid
there's never been an A superstar in the LGBTQIA. There's never been like an asexual rock star.
Okay.
Like we've had you've had your Hunter Schafer is your top gal for trans right now. You've
Right.
had gay icons, lesbian icons. You haven't had.
Have you had intersex icons? Are we counting Jamie Lee Curtis?
I'm not gonna say icon, but yeah, I mean I'll look up.
Isn't that an old wives' tale? Isn't that an urban legend anyway? The Jamie Lee Curtis thing. I think we talked about it eons ago on this show.
No, I don't think that is correct. Does the I really stand for intersex?
Yeah.
Huh. I don't know. I'm just saying it would be pretty tight if they were like, yo,
yeah, that is a Hollywood myth.
The rainbow does include you asexual, damn near 30-year-old boy man. Congratulations, dude. You're welcome on the float.
Beautiful stuff. But then that may never be the point. Everyone got what they came for, and in the end, I'm afraid the clickbait title summed it up plainly enough. Sorry, old friend. But I mean, you're still writing an article about it, aren't you? So I guess, Piers Morgan got what he wanted, which was publicity. All right. And then our last topic that we're going to go over today, our last story that we're going to go over today, is about this Somali fraud. Okay. So how I got to this was I hadn't heard about it. And then, have you heard about this Somali fraud in Minnesota?
Only in the sense that, people on my timeline are calling for Tim Walz's head and talking about how he's a traitor to the United States and whatnot.
Got it. So I went over to Breitbart to see what was going on there. And the top headline on Breitbart.com was Minnesota, nearly every Somali household with children on welfare. So before just saying like that can't be true, I was like, let me look into this. Let me look into this a little bit more. And I found a Fox News op-ed and a New York Times article on it. Again, not covered widely, especially not on the left. But the New York Times did write a piece about it, which, you know, to their credit. And it's pretty interesting. Again, you know, the left often doesn't want stories like this to be true, but when it's true, it's true. Like the truth is the truth, and like that's it. How fraud swamped Minnesota's social services system on Tim Walz's watch. Prosecutors say members of the Somali diaspora, a group with growing political power, were largely responsible. President Trump has drawn national attention to the scandal amid his crackdown on immigration. This is by Ernesto Ladonio. The fraud scandal, and this is from November 29th. So this is kind of just to show you, if you haven't heard about this, this has really been flying under the radar. The fraud scandal, or, you know, relatively, right? There's a lot going on. The fraud scandal that rattled Minnesota was staggering in its scale and brazenness. Federal prosecutors charged dozens of people with felonies, accusing them of stealing hundreds of millions of dollars from a government program meant to keep children fed during the COVID-19 pandemic. At first, many in the state saw the case as a one-off abuse during a health emergency, but as new schemes targeting the state's generous safety net programs came to light, state and federal officials began to grapple with a jarring reality. Over the last 5 years, law enforcement officials say fraud took root in pockets of Minnesota's Somali diaspora as scores of individuals made small fortunes by setting up companies that billed state agencies for millions of dollars worth of social services that were never provided. Federal prosecutors say that 59 people have been convicted in those schemes so far, and that more than $1 billion in taxpayers' money has been stolen in 3 plots they are investigating. That is more than Minnesota spends annually to run its Department of Corrections. Minnesota's fraud scandal stood out even in the context of rampant theft during the pandemic, when Americans stole tens of billions through unemployment benefits, business loans, and other forms of aid, according to federal auditors. Outrage has swelled among Minnesotans, and fraud has turned into a potent political issue in a competitive campaign season. Governor Tim Walz and fellow Democrats are being asked to explain how so much money was stolen on their watch, providing Republicans who hope to take back the governor's office in 2026 with a powerful line of attack. In recent days, President Trump has weighed in, calling Minnesota a hub of fraudulent money laundering activity and saying that Somali perpetrators should be sent, quote, back to where they came from. Of course, many Somali Americans in Minnesota say the fraud has damaged the reputation of their entire community. Yeah, welcome to being a Jew. Around 80,000 people at a moment when their political and economic standing was on the rise. Debate over the fraud has opened new rifts between the state's Somali community and other Minnesotans, and has left some Somali Americans saying they are unfairly facing a new layer of suspicion against all of them, rather than the small group accused of fraud. Critics of the Walz administration say that the fraud persisted partly because state officials were fearful of alienating the Somali community in Minnesota. Governor Walz, who has instituted new fraud prevention safeguards, defended his administration's tactics or actions. The episode has raised broader questions for some residents about the sustainability of Minnesota's Scandinavian-modeled system of robust safety net programs bankrolled by high taxes. That system helped create an environment that drew immigrants to the state over many decades, including tens of thousands of Somali refugees after their country descended into civil war in the 1990s. No one will support these programs if they continue to be riddled with fraud, Joseph H. Thompson, the federal prosecutor who has overseen the fraud case, said in an interview. We're losing our way of life in Minnesota in a very real way. Surge of cases. The first public sign of a major problem in the state's social services came in 2022 when federal prosecutors began charging defendants in connection to a program aimed at feeding hungry children. Merrick B. Garland, Attorney General during the Biden administration, called it the country's largest pandemic relief fraud scheme. The prosecutors focused on a Minneapolis nonprofit organization called Feeding Our Future, which became a partner to dozens of local businesses that enrolled as feeding sites. State agencies reimbursed the group and its partners for invoices claiming to have fed tens of thousands of children. In reality, federal prosecutors said most of the meals were non-existent, and business owners spent the funds on luxury cars, houses, and even real estate projects abroad. Wow, it's a real Black Lives Matter all over again. Fuck. Behind the scenes, as federal investigators sifted through bank records and interviewed witnesses, they said they realized that the meals fraud was not an isolated incident. In September, prosecutors charged 9 people in 2 new plots tied to the public funds meant for those in need. How do these people sleep at night? In one case, hundreds of providers were reimbursed for assistance they claimed to have provided to people at risk for homelessness, though federal authorities said services weren't provided. The program's annual cost ballooned to more than $104 million last year, the authorities said, from a budgeted projection of $2.6 million when it began in 2020. 2 of 8 people charged in the scenario have pleaded guilty. 6 others have pleaded not guilty and are awaiting trial. In another program aimed to provide therapy for autistic children, prosecutors said providers recruited children in Minneapolis's Somali community, falsely certifying them as qualifying for autism treatment and paying their parents kickbacks for their cooperation. Prosecutors have so far charged one provider, Asha Farhan Hassan, 29, with wire fraud. They say she and business partners stole $14 million. Ryan Pakiga, Ms. Hassan's lawyer, said his client had entered the social services field with good intentions, but eventually began to submit fraudulent invoices. He said she intends to plead guilty. And that story right there, I actually do believe it, right? I think this happens to social workers. I think this happens with politicians. I think many people start with good intentions, and then they realize it's kind of a thankless job. They're not getting paid, and they're like, "Fuck it! I found this way to get myself money. I'm just gonna do this because I wanted to make a difference. But now I'm exhausted. I'm burned out, and I don't give a shit anymore, and I just want to be paid." Not defending it, but I'm like, I can see how it happens. Ms. Hassan is of Somali ancestry, as are all but 8 of the 86 people charged in the meals, housing, and autism therapy fraud cases, according to prosecutors. A vast majority are American citizens by birthright or naturalization. Also, side note, I've been seeing a lot of people calling themselves autistic, like for real, saying they're diagnosed, they're autistic now after years and years and years. And I mean, maybe we just got to rein it in a little bit. If you're so autistic that it took until 45 to figure out that you're autistic, maybe you're not autistic enough to, have it give you money. Not that these people are part of the scam, but it's just like, okay. Mr. Pasiga, who has also represented other defendants in the cases, said that some involved became convinced that state agencies were tolerating, if not tacitly allowing the fraud. No one was doing anything about the red flags, he said. It was like someone was stealing money from the cookie jar and they kept refilling it. Red flags in the meals program surfaced in the early months of the pandemic, but the money kept flowing. I think the government was just overwhelmed at that time, so it was a perfect time for a scheme. In 2020, Minnesota Department of Education officials who administered the program became overwhelmed by the number of applicants seeking to register new feeding sites and began raising questions about the plausibility of some invoices. Feeding Our Future, the nonprofit group that was the largest provider in the pandemic program, responded with a warning. In an email, the group told the state agency that failing to promptly approve new applicants from minority-owned businesses would result in a lawsuit featuring accusations of racism that would be sprawled across the news. Very interesting. weaponizing racism, which is a real thing, but then using it to your advantage. No, no, no. Feeding Our Future later sued the agency, which continued reimbursing claims and approving new sites in the months that followed. A report by Minnesota's nonpartisan Office of the Legislative Auditor about the lapses that enabled the meals fraud later found that the threat of litigation and of negative press affected how state officials used their regulatory power. So, in a way, cancel culture partly sponsored this. And the freedom to just do whoever the fuck we want in America. Kayesh Magan, a Somali American who formerly worked as a fraud investigator for the Minnesota Attorney General's office, said elected officials in the state, and particularly those who were part of the state's Democratic-led administration, were reluctant to take more assertive action in response to allegations in the Somali community. So right now what we're saying is if you are a member of a minority group, and like white woman doesn't count, but like some kind of real like of the times minority, it is a great time for you to start a scheme. There is a perception that forcefully tackling this issue might cause political backlash among the Somali community, which is a core voting bloc for Democrats, said Mr. Magan, who is among the few prominent figures in the Somali community to speak out about the fraud. So, I mean, like, if you're Muslim and in Michigan, now's your time, baby. Fraud it up. As a trial in the meals fraud case was coming to a close last summer, an attempt to bribe a juror included an explicit insinuation about racism, prosecutors said. Several defendants in the trial were found to have arranged to send a bag containing $120,000 to a juror, along with a note that read, why is it always people of color and immigrants prosecuted for the fault of other people? Mr. Thompson, a career prosecutor who served as interim U.S. attorney for several months this year and who declined to discuss his own political preferences, said he believed that race sensitivities had played a major role in the rise of fraud. As pandemic assistance was dispersed, the state was also reeling from the killing of George Floyd by a Minneapolis police officer in May 2020, he said. This was a huge part of the problem, Mr. Thompson said during an interview in the summer. Allegations of racism can be a reputation or career killer. Mr. Walz, Minnesota's second-term governor who gained national attention last year as Kamala Harris's running mate in a White House bid, said this week that claims of racism did not hinder his administration's response to fraud. Mr. Walz has said that his administration may have erred on the side of generosity, which is very Tim Walz of him, during the pandemic as the state pushed out large sums of money quickly, seeking to keep Minnesotans housed, fed, and healthy. The programs are set up to move the money to people, Mr. Walz said in an interview. The programs are set up to improve people's lives, and in many cases, the criminals find the loopholes. Mr. Walz, who is seeking a third term next year, has created a new task force to pursue fraud cases, made it easier for state agencies to share information with one another, and announced plans for new technology, including artificial intelligence tools to spot suspicious billing practices. But people aren't going to like that now. The message here in Minnesota, Mr. Walz said, is if you commit a crime, if you commit fraud against public dollars, you are going to go to prison. Fraud has already become a central issue in a competitive governor's race. Lisa DeMuth, a Republican and current Minnesota House Speaker, accused the governor of raising taxes while letting fraud run wild in a video announcing her bid to replace Mr. Walz. In recent months, Mr. Walz's administration began shutting down the housing program altogether, acknowledging that it was riddled with fraud. Last month, the state hired an independent auditor to review claims for 14 other Medicaid-funded programs that the state said were at high risk of fraud. Greedy people and businesses have learned how to exploit our programs, James Clark, the Inspector General at the Department of Human Services, told lawmakers during a recent hearing. Fraud is the business model. The fallout. Years after the fraud cases first came to light, the issue has come under a harsh national spotlight amid the Trump administration's immigration crackdown. Mr. Trump last week denounced the Minnesota fraud cases on social media and simultaneously announced an end to a temporary legal status that allows several hundred Somali immigrants to live and work in the United States. His comments followed a report this month in the Manhattan Institute's publication City Journal, in which Ryan Thorpe, a reporter, and I read this as well, and Christopher Rufo, a conservative activist, said that money from Minnesota's fraud was funding al-Shabaab, a terrorist organization in Somalia. That claim emerged in 2018, but there has been no solid evidence to substantiate it, and none of the federal fraud cases have featured a link to terrorism. Over the last few days, in response to the shooting of National Guard members in Washington, Mr. Trump has again spoken of Somalis in Minnesota, saying they were ripping off our country. In Minnesota, Mr. Trump's remarks deeply unsettled Somalis. Dozens came to a Somali mall in Minneapolis over the weekend for a potluck, an interfaith gathering where faith leaders decried Mr. Trump's statements. And in a news conference on Monday, Democratic elected officials pointed to contributions Somali leaders have made to Minnesota's political, economic, and cultural spheres. Several Somali Americans serve in the state legislature and other offices, while others have been honored for their entrepreneurship. I mean, I think the thing is here is like, yes, if a lot of people are involved in a scam or in fraud, maybe we don't call it Somali fraud. And like, maybe we don't even need to know what the background of these people are. Like, that's the problem. We're so obsessed with identity. Just say a bunch of people committed fraud. Like, unless it is actually linked back to Somalia and we can substantiate that, then it doesn't really matter. Just, these people need to pay their penance, and it doesn't need to affect all the Somalis. We do not blame the lawlessness of an individual on a whole community. Representative Ilhan Omar, a Democrat who was born in Somalia and whose district includes Minneapolis, told reporters. Somali residents who were initially concentrated in a neighborhood near downtown Minneapolis with high-rises and Somali-run restaurants and shops, but over the years, many have moved to the suburbs and elsewhere in the state. Their experiences have been challenging at times, as many in the community contended with poverty, unemployment, and language barriers. In recent years, some Somali Americans say the community has been broadly blamed over crime and links to terrorist groups. Few episodes have left fissures as deep as the fraud scandal. Ahmad Samatar, a professor at Macalester College who is a leading expert in Somali studies, said a reckoning over the fraud and its consequences for Minnesota was overdue. American society and the denizens of the state of Minnesota have been extremely good to Somalis, said Dr. Samatar, who is Somali American. Dr. Samatar said that Somali refugees who came to the United States after their country's civil war were raised in a culture in which stealing from the country's dysfunctional and corrupt government was widespread. Minnesota, he said, provided susceptible to rampant fraud because it is so tolerant, so open, and so geared toward keeping an eye on the weak. Others in the community have criticized steps state agencies have taken to tighten oversight of programs. The Minnesota Somali Community Center, a nonprofit organization that provides resources to Somalis, recently issued a statement saying that many social services providers were now at risk of closure and feeling criminalized and intentionally targeted. Still, other Somali Americans who have nothing to do with social service agencies said that they had come to feel under siege amid all the fraud allegations and political accusations. The actions of a small group have made it easier for people already inclined to reject us to double down, said Abdi Mohammed, a filmmaker in Minneapolis. So make a film about it. The broader Somali community, hardworking, family-oriented, deeply committed to Minnesota, is left carrying that burden. So I thought that was very interesting. Again, if you want to go to the White House, actual whitehouse.gov, there's an article that says, yes, there's something wrong with walls and it costs taxpayers $1 billion. I mean, this is pretty short. But it says, President Donald J. Trump is right. Minnesota has become a hub of fraudulent money laundering activity where refugees from Somalia are completely taking over the once great state. I love how everything used to be great. Nowhere is that more evident than the shocking fraud scandal that took place under the incompetence of deeply disturbed Democrat, this again on the White House website, Governor Tim Walz, in which 78 of the 86 individuals charged so far are of Somali ancestry. Democrats allowed so I mean, like, if we're talking about frauds and fucking over people, like, are we then going to make it a straight white man fraud, or not even straight, because I think, you know, some of these people are gay, but like a Caucasian man fraud? Or is that what we're going to call billionaires? Like, I don't ever hear anyone at the top calling them that. I don't ever hear the president saying that, because they're all the same type of person. Are they not? Democrats allowed a $1 billion heist to take place. The fraud involved a massive, complex network of nonprofits and affiliates, largely run through the Somali community. The massive scandal unfolded on Walz's watch, and he did absolutely nothing about it. President Trump is taking action. The Trump administration is terminating temporary protected status for Somalis indefinitely, halting migration from third world countries, re-examining green cards for every alien from every country of concern, pausing all asylum decisions, and more, all as part of its relentless effort to ensure migrants that remain are a net positive on our society. So again, just that's what the blog on the website. And I guess we'll close out today with this op-ed about this same thing from Fox News, just to get the counterpoint. Although I guess, the White House was really diving in. This says how misreading Somali poverty led Minnesota into its largest welfare scandal. Minnesota's welfare fraud by Somali immigrants went unchecked as officials feared being labeled racist, confusing immigrant poverty with systemic racism. So this is interesting. So it's kind of just like, all right, well, we'll get into it. But yeah, I mean, this reminds me a lot of something that we talk about all the time on here, is how, at the start of COVID, people conflated or confused xenophobia with an actual medical emergency. The billion-dollar pandemic era social service billing fraud, perpetuated mainly by Somali immigrants in Minneapolis, is shocking in its scale. That Minnesota public officials would have turned a blind eye to one of the largest state welfare scandals in American history for fear of being viewed as racist should surprise no one. And I feel like this is actually, a point that Republicans have, that, we're too concerned with identity and not facts. But then, you know what? One way to quell this is, babes, how about you guys stop being so fucking racist? And then we wouldn't have to constantly be on the defense about it, For years, the state has wrongly oh my God. For years, the state has wrongly convinced itself that its Black residents suffer from a deeply racist past. Progressives made a key error, confusing the situation of new immigrants who happen to be Black Africans with those who are the descendants of American slaves. But they were sure that they had to correct the past with dramatic policy changes. This underappreciated story began with what seemed to be an alarming 2019 investigation by the Minneapolis Star-Tribune that labeled Minnesota one of the most racially inequitable states, a conclusion based on a poverty rate 4 times higher for Blacks than whites. But this is the same state that had extended a warm welcome through Lutheran and Catholic social service groups to refugees fleeing the Somalian civil war. By 2024, some 107,000 residents of Somali descent would reside in Minnesota. The state had effectively imported large-scale Black poverty, but this had everything to do with immigration and nothing to do with Jim Crow and its legacy. And I mean, again, I think it just had more to do with the fact that they were refugees, and they could have been white, they could have been purple, they could have been yellow, they could have been any color. It was the fact that they were refugees and they were coming in large scale. That's the point here. And then here in America, because of course we get so bogged down with, are they Black? Are they white? Or what are they? Neighborhood level poverty data tells the story. In the North Minneapolis Hawthorne neighborhood, among the city's poorest, 38% of residents are Black and 21% are foreign-born. In the Cedar Riverside neighborhood, 44.5% of residents are Black and 42% of the population is foreign-born. The newspaper, however, attributed the economic gap not to immigration but to special benefits made available over time to the white population, referring to redlining, federal mortgage guidelines that hampered Blacks from buying homes in Minneapolis and most other American cities, but long since abolished, long before the Somalis arrived. Yeah, but those things do have a generational impact, but okay. But Minneapolis went into how to be anti-racist overdrive, led by liberal Mayor Jacob Frey, who'd become notorious when he failed to crack down on the riots that followed the death of George Floyd. The city approved a law abolishing all single-family zoning in Minneapolis. He made clear that doing so was a form of reparations. Per Mayor Frey, the city, he told Politico, was perpetuating racist policies implicitly through our zoning code. Then City Council President Lisa Bender piled on, housing is inextricably linked with income, with all of these other systems that are failing, especially in Minnesota, people of color. The anti-racist rhetoric overlooked the fact that there were long racially integrated neighborhoods in a city and state that historically had a relatively small Black population, just 4.4% in 1970, before rising to more than 18% today thanks to Somali immigration. As I analyzed for City Journal, which in October broke the story about fraud money potentially supporting a terrorist front group in one of the city's most affluent areas, a respectable 4.3% of its households are African American, compared with 7.4% for the metropolitan area as a whole. The city's Victory neighborhood is 18.3% African American, and 40% of its population is in the highest income category. It is both well off and racially integrated. Minneapolis had no reason for white guilt. But the Star Tribune story landed at the beginning of the how to be anti-racist era, and Minneapolis was on board, confusing immigrant poverty with racism. So it was when one policeman tragically overreacted in arresting George Floyd, the city and the country concluded that policing, like zoning, is irredeemably racist. I will say in this op-ed, I mean, he's underplaying George Floyd a little bit, but okay. It was the same anti-zoning Mayor Frey who acquiesced when rioters set fire to the city's 3rd Precinct police station following Floyd's death, which led to the city to dial back policing in favor of social services. New Yorkers may see the same playbook from Mayor-elect Zoran Mamdani. In light of the supposed racist backdrop to Somali poverty, state officials were hardly going to stanch the flow of federal dollars to faux food banks and autism treatment centers. It's possible that Governor Tim Walz saw an infusion of federal dollars as good news, a way to help address the supposedly systemic Black-white wealth gap. The right approach, of course, involves what was once called assimilation, making sure Somalis learn English and gain the skills necessary for upward mobility. Not exactly the agenda of the most prominent Somali American Representative Ilhan Omar, herself a one-time refugee who is quick to denounce systemic racism. It is hard to understand the hyper-racial sensitivity of Minnesota progressives. Minneapolis elected Sharon Sales Benton, its first Black female mayor, in 1994. NFL great Ellen Page became a state Supreme Court judge, and of course there's the Minneapolis-bred musical genius of Prince. Well, we know we're reaching when we're just like listing some Black people. The state had no reason to conclude cracking down on welfare fraud among new immigrants from a nation beset by corrupt government was racist, but in the wake of long building was misplaced white guilt, that's what it did. Taxpayers have lost not only financially, residents of a famously well-governed state will lose their trust in government. Well, I mean, again, they could have also just been like, the journalists can be more responsible, instead of saying like Somali fraud, that you can just be like, oh, there's widespread fraud in Minnesota, and these are the names of the people doing it. And if people want to deep dive and figure out that these people are Somali, then they can do that. But it's just like, if you're tired of identity politics, well, on the flip side, also on the right, stop making, you're also feeding into the left's need to play identity politics when you have fucking, headlines like, all Somali children are living on welfare, or nearly every Somali household with children on welfare. Why you can easily change that to there is a large, influx of people needing welfare in Minnesota. What's the root cause of that? Why is this happening? So, you can blame both sides for this, but it's unnecessary, I think, in most cases, to know, like when someone is committing a crime, what their ethnic background is, unless it's a hate crime, right? Because now, even on this show, we have to look up the gender, the, sexual preference, the ethnicity, the religion of the people, of the journalists writing articles, because that is bleeding into people's journalism. And you have to be careful for that, about that, because that does affect things. Like, what perspective am I getting this from? And although they are still held to this standard of journalistic integrity, they are also, you feel free to leave certain things out, and they can do so strategically. Anyway, that is our show today. I told you it was absolutely jam-packed. There was just so much. Some weeks I'm kind of grasping at straws. This week I was like, oh my God, there's so many things I want to talk about. So I hope you enjoyed this show. I also know usually during the holidays, there's a dip in viewership. So I want to make, or just you guys don't have time, you're doing family stuff. So I wanted to give you, before we really get into the deep of the holiday season, a nice big long episode. I appreciate you so much. Make sure to go and get that merch. Again, the merch is available. It says Without a Country merch. It's in the Linktree link in my bio. On all my social media, I'm at Philanthropy Gal on everything. I'm there on Instagram. I'm there on X. I'm on Threads. I'm on TikTok. So make sure to purchase those. And again, just because they're coming in January, you can still gift them. You fill out the address, have the ship to address be the recipients, so you don't have to personally deliver it, and then just print out a picture and put it in their stocking or wrap it in a box. I've definitely given things that haven't arrived yet, or when I give people play tickets or something, you can make that a nice presentation. You don't got to just hand someone a piece of paper or say, oh, I'm getting this, but you print it out, and then they have something to look forward to, because again, January and February can be quite depressing after a holiday season of drinking and eating and receiving presents and being around your family. I know that's hit or miss for some of you, but January is cold and quiet, and you're dieting and you're hungover and you're just in a slump. So it's always nice to get a present, and more so get a present for yourself, for being a good active citizen, for giving a shit about your community, for spending time learning about the world in which we live every week. I appreciate it so much. And again, if you want to see me live in New Jersey, I'm in Morris Plains, New Jersey this Saturday, December 13th with Chloe LeBranch. We're co-headlining. A really fun lineup, a really fun show. Great chicken tenders. They're the chicken tenders of my childhood. That's why I talk about them all, because I didn't grow up in Morris Plains, but Tiff's, which is formerly known as Tiffany Gardens, we had one in Union where I grew up, and it was one of my favorite restaurants. We went there so much, I think I've even thrown up there once. If I was anywhere a lot as a child, I definitely threw up there because I had a tendency for throwing up. But I used to always ask my parents to take me to Tiffany Gardens, and they had this thin crust pizza appetizer that was bomb. And I was eating tons of meat back in the day, so I would used to eat baby back ribs and chicken fingers, and they were so good. So if you're a meat eater, you can delight in that. If you're not, I think they have pretty good salads too. Obviously the pizza, I don't think that's still on the menu though. I gotta brush up on the menu, but I fucking love this place. I'm so excited to go there and nosh and perform comedy for you guys, and to be in my home state again. So make sure to get tickets to that. Get your merch. Thank you so much. If you want to join the Patreon, it's patreon.com/withoutacountry. If you want to email me, it's withoutacountrypodcast@gmail.com. And Mike, do you have anything that you want to promote?
Yeah, coming up January 31st, the Armored League is back at the Tropicana in Atlantic City. Sam rides Deadly Duos, 2v2 tournament action, going to be a lot of fun. And then next week, next Thursday, December 18th, New York Comedy Club, 10 p.m. show at the East 4th location, Anxiety Attack, Isabel Hagen, Eva Evans, Brendan Sagalow, and a number of other very funny comics. Get tickets
Very
now.
good lineup, as usual, Michael. Very good lineup. And then, of course, I have my New Year's Eve show also. So save the date for December 31st for me for New Year's Eve. They emailed me about it today, so the link should be up soon. And I'll get art made for the poster and stuff like that. But it's going to be super fun. It'll be at 6 or 6:30 at New York Comedy Club East Village on New Year's Eve. A great way to start your night. That night starts early because it basically ends when the ball drops, unless you're really young and you're going to party until like 2 a.m. But yeah, like that is an earlier night because, you know, it's all leading up to midnight, which is like, you know, when I was young, I would go out at like 11 p.m. I would start my night at 11 p.m. and end it at 7 a.m. Man, I miss those days. New York's just not even like that anymore. I honestly, I feel bad for Gen Z that you're not partying until 7 a.m. What are you making that face? After COVID, all the after hours spots, they did away with them, Mike. I mean, unless you go to a strip club, that's always an option. I feel like strip clubs are open the latest. What are you coughing about? Where's the after hours?
I know where some after hours
All
are.
right, well, I guess give it to me off the air because I love an after hours. But like I used to go to like bumping gay after hours or like a strip club in Queens that you come out and the sun's up. Like I have had some wild nights. Man.
Yeah, I know not a lot of. I know a couple like wash and fold / laundromats.
Okay, I love.
Where it's like, you know, you got you open up one of the washing machines and, you know, it's oots all night.
But are they really cool? Are people dancing? Are they drinking? Are they having fun? Or are they just vaping and looking at each other?
I mean, little column A, little column B. Look, anytime I went, I found someone to dance with.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is this something that you're doing
No.
recently? Oh.
No, no, this was back when I was
Yeah, so pre-COVID.
No. When I was working in Brooklyn, post-COVID.
Oh,
But
at Brooklyn Comedy Club?
Yeah.
Okay.
So we're talking, I don't know, what's that, 2-3 years ago, something like that?
Rest in peace. I miss that club every single day of my life.
Oh, well, thank God Funny People at Bedford Falls is
Wow.
alive.
Okay, this is Mike's personal bias coming into it. And we don't do personal bias on this show. And if we do, well, I guess if we do, we point it out because I go on rants sometimes. Anyway, make sure you're following Without a Country podcast. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube. Make sure you're following Without a Country podcast on Instagram. All the things, these all help support. We're doing this together, babies. Have a great week. Where is Shelly Miscavige? I don't know. Get a hat and start the conversation. I'm telling you, I am calling it now. The Where is Shelly Miscavige hat, it's going to get one of you a husband or a wife. It is a conversation starter that is going to get you guys at the bare minimum laid, but I'm calling full-on relationship that ends in marriage. All right. Bye, guys.